Suchen and Xia Nin went to rest first. Qin Xia and Yushui each held a lit torch and sat by the door. Next to them stood a battery, powered floodlight turned to its highest setting. This was the best protection they could manage for the moment. Xia, do you think these torches might burn the house down? Yushui glanced nervously at the torch in her right hand and asked Qin Xia. The torch was about 1 meter long and fairly heavy to hold. Qin Xia could not help smiling. Shudi, where has your courage gone? This is nothing like you. In her memory, Yushui had always been the confident, brilliant arts goddess on stage. She had never been so easily frightened. Yushui's face flushed. She mumbled softly, hey. I'm just worried. Don't tease me, Xia. We should be fine as long as we stay careful. Qin Xia's smile faded, and her tone turned serious. When we get tired, we can store the torches in our backpack space. It won't take much effort. As she spoke, she focused her mind and gave it a try. Sure enough, the torch in her hand vanished without a trace. See? You can take it out again when you need it. Right after her words, the burning torch reappeared in her hand out of thin air. Oh, I completely forgot about the backpack space. Yushui scratched her head in embarrassment, feeling rather foolish. The backpack space seems to have many uses, Qin Xia said thoughtfully, watching the dancing flames. I suspect it might also keep food from spoiling. Is that really possible? Yushui looked surprised. It's only a guess. We haven't tested it yet, Qin Xia went on. But if I'm right, the food we get from Suchen's supply intel can be safely preserved. At the mention of Suchen, Yushui grew curious. She leaned closer to Qin Xia and lowered her voice. Speaking in a gossipy tone. Xia, what do you think of Suchen? Him. What about him? Why are you asking all of a sudden? Qin Xia's expression stiffened, and a bad premonition rose inside her. It's just, well, lit by the firelight, Yushui's cheeks turned pink. She twisted her fingers and barely whispered. I think he's quite impressive. Yushui dashed Qin Xia never finished her sentence. Muffled growls suddenly echoed from outside the wooden house. Ho, ho, ho. Both girls paled and gripped their torches tightly. Bang, bang, bang. Heavy thuds slammed against the wooden door. They did not come very fast. Yet every impact sent a shudder through their bodies. Then came frantic scratching sounds. Screech, screech. Something was raking its sharp nails across the wooden walls. They're here. Yushui's voice trembled, all color draining from her face. Sweat dampened Qin Xia's palms, but she forced herself to stay calm, recalling what Suchen had done the day before. Light. Shine light on them. She lifted the floodlight. Together with Yushui, they shone torches and lamplight out through gaps in the walls. But the monsters did not recoil as they had hoped. Roar dash. The creatures paused for 1 second, then roared in unbridled rage. The banging and scratching grew wilder and more frequent. The light only seemed to enrage them. How is this happening? Aren't they afraid of light anymore? Yushui panicked completely. Hurry! Wake the others. Qin Xia made a quick decision and shouted toward the inner room. Suchen! Xia Nin! Wake up! Monsters are attacking. The instant her shout died away, Suchen shot upright from the bed. What's going on? The monsters are attacking us. Light doesn't work, it only makes them angrier. Yushui cried out in a shaky voice. Are they coming again? Xia Nin woke up too, huddling under her quilt and shaking. Stay calm. Suchen regained his composure in seconds. Glancing at the splintering walls under assault, he barked out orders at once. He pulled all the finished torches from his backpack and handed 2 to each person. Hold on to them. Don't panic. He pressed the floodlight into Qin Xia's hands. Xia, keep hold of this. If they break in, shine it straight at them. With that done, he sprinted toward the workbench without hesitation. Stone spear. Requires wood ×2, raw stone ×1 stone shield. Requires wood ×3, raw stone ×5 craft. Craft them all. Suchen operated the interface frantically. System notice. Stone spear crafted successfully. System notice. Stone shield crafted successfully. In the blink of an eye, 4 spears tipped with sharp stone and 4 simple round shields reinforced with stone and wood appeared on the floor. Everyone take 1 set. Quick! He passed out the weapons. He himself held a spear in one hand and a shield in the other, staring fixedly at the door. At that moment, boom dash. A deafening crash. The flimsy wooden door could no longer withstand the savage assault and shattered into pieces. 3 decayed, staggering figures stumbled inside amid flying wood chips. Their skin was gray-blue, covered in necrotic patches and festering wounds. Cloudy white filled their eye sockets, and hoarse growls rumbled in their throats. A powerful stench of rot flooded the whole cabin. They looked like zombies. Xia Nin let out a shrill scream. Don't be afraid. Shine light on them. Suchin roared. The three girls reacted, aiming their light sources forward. Roar dash. Light still had an effect. The zombies' bodies seemed to burn, and they dropped to one knee, unwilling to draw closer. Suchin remembered the earlier intel. Zombies' weak point was their heads. He rammed his stone shield against the foremost zombie and drove his spear hard into its skull. Squelch! The spear sank into rotting flesh as though piercing cotton, finding little resistance. The zombie froze mid-movement, then fell heavily to the ground with a dull thud. It worked. Relief surged through Suchin. He shouted at the girls. Aim for the heads. Stab their heads with the spears. Given a clear target, Yushui and Qin Xia hesitated no longer. Qin Xia kept one zombie's face bathed in light. Seizing the chance, Yushui shut her eyes and screamed, driving her spear forward with all her strength. Aya! The stone spear plunged deep into the zombie's eye socket until nearly the whole shaft disappeared. The second zombie collapsed. Only one remained. Sensing its companion's deaths, the last zombie flew into a frenzy. Ignoring the agony the light inflicted, it lunged straight for Suchin, the nearest target. Suchin's eyes turned cold. Instead of retreating, he advanced. His left hand swung the stone shield hard into the zombie's face. Look out! The other three grew alarmed. They raised their torches and struck the zombie's back with burning flames. Fire and light were both the creature's greatest fears. Now both assailed it at full force. Roar dash! The zombie convulsed violently. This was his opening. Suchin's stone spear shot forward like a striking snake. Squelch! The spear tip jammed through its open mouth and pierced out the back of its skull. Silence fell over the room. Only four people's ragged, gasping breaths echoed inside the cabin. Staring at the three stinking, rotting corpses on the floor, everyone stood frozen, their minds blank. We killed them, Xia Nin's voice broke into sobs. Her legs gave way and she sank to the floor. Gazing at the mangled flesh, her face turned ghastly pale. Her stomach churned violently. Yushui and Qin Xia fared little better. Their faces drained of color, their legs trembling. Though they had mentally prepared themselves, actually ending a human-like creature dealt a devastating psychological and visual shock. Suchin was holding up best, yet his chest heaved wildly. He glanced at the bodies, then at the terrified girls, and forced himself to refocus. Now was not the time to give in to fear. He stepped forward and studied the three corpses. They wore tattered rags. Judging by build and clothing, two were men and one was a woman. Their features were too decayed to recognize, but their pockets bulged. Fighting back nausea, Suchin used the tip of his stone spear to pry open one male zombie's pocket. A few worthless trinkets clattered out, a crumpled half-pack of cigarettes, a dead lighter, and a rusted key. He checked the other two bodies and found equally meager loot. From the female zombie's pocket came a small hard candy wrapped in plastic. On the other male zombie, he found only a faded, unrecognizable photograph. Don't look anymore, Suchin said as he stood. We need to get these bodies outside. We cannot spend the night with them in here. His words jolted the shaken girls back to reality. The thought of sleeping beside corpses made their skin crawl. Use your spears to drag them out and throw them far away. Ugh, this is disgusting, though whimpering, Xia Nin struggled to her feet. The sticky, rotten texture traveled up the spear shafts, worsening the girls' pallor. Still, they bit their teeth and hauled all three bodies out of the cabin, tossing them deep into the distant fog. Even after removing the corpses, the cabin still reeked. Suchin pulled out alcohol wipes and passed them around. Wipe your hands, your weapons, and the floor. They used most of the pack to clean filth from their skin and wipe away bloodstains on the planks. Exhaustion weighed heavy on everyone. They stared at the bare door frame left behind and shuddered. If Suchin had not prepared weapons ahead of time, if they had reacted more slowly, they might have been the ones lying dead tonight. Instead of resting, Suchin walked to the workbench and pulled up the repair interface. Repair wooden door. Requires wood times 10 repair. Materials vanished from his inventory. Wood dust and stone particles swirled in mid-air and solidified. In an instant, a brand new wooden door stood in the frame. Suchin pushed and pulled it. It fit perfectly. He closed it and slid home the bolt. and only then breathed a small sigh of relief. He turned toward Qin Xia and Yushuthi, his tone solemn. Given what happened tonight, none of us will sleep. We take turns keeping watch together. If we fall asleep, whatever comes next might kill us before we wake. No one objected. After their brush with death, none dared grow careless. The four sat back. No one spoke. Each gripped a torch and a stone spear tightly. Time ticked by. Strange howls echoed outside for hours, yet no more zombies attacked. The newly repaired door gave them a strong sense of safety. Eventually, the first faint morning light seeped through wall cracks. Everyone perked up. Dawn had come. They had survived another night. Now that the danger passed, overwhelming weariness crashed over them. They forced themselves to split a beef can and drink water to restore strength. After resting for half an hour, Suchin stood again. All right. Time to pick today's intel. At those words, the three girls grew tense. Suchin, should we pick creature intel today? Yushui spoke first, her voice still shaky. Last night was terrifying. We ought to learn what other monsters are nearby so we can prepare. Right? Xia Inin nodded vigorously. Know your enemy and you will win the fight. What if something unknown shows up? Even the normally calm Qin Xia agreed. The zombie assault the night before had left deep psychological scars. Suchin watched their anxious faces and thought it over. Creature intel would certainly be the safer choice. But he glanced at the cabin upgrade panel. Their wood supply was abundant, yet they still lacked plenty of raw stone. A full day's mining would get them there. A sturdier level 2 cabin would offer far better real-world protection than just knowing monster traits. After weighing everything, Suchin reached his decision. No. We choose supply intel again this time. Why? Xia Inin asked in confusion. Upgrading the cabin is our most fundamental line of defense, Suchin explained patiently. Knowing about monsters cannot stop them from attacking us. But a level 2 cabin might keep them from breaking in at all. We are only short on raw stone to finish the upgrade. We should gather enough today. His reasoning silenced the girls. They had to admit he was right. In the end, they consented to his plan. Suchin selected supply intel. You have chosen supply intel. Intel 1, roughly 1 kilometer southwest of the cabin, lies a small cave containing useful supplies. Intel 2, roughly 900 meters due east of the cabin, food is hidden beneath a large tree. Both options looked promising, though both targets were quite far away. The intel is in. Suchin shared the information with the others and began assigning tasks. This time, the two of you go out. Us. Xia Inin pointed at herself in disbelief. Suchin had his reasons. He had already gone out twice. He should not have gone the previous time. But critical supplies had forced him to go personally. This time, even if they got lost or found nothing, the risk was acceptable. Besides, Xia Inin and Yushi needed experience. They could not keep relying entirely on him. Once the assignment was settled, the two girls got ready to leave. After they departed, Suchin began mining stone. He had barely swung his iron pickaxe a few times when his throat went dry. He reached for water in his backpack, only to find not a single bottle left. Really, Suchin shook his head. He decided to head back to the cabin to grab water before continuing mining. Since he was working nearby, he had left the door unlocked. Stepping inside, he froze at what he saw. Qin Xia was leaning against a wall, pale-faced, struggling to stand. There was a large, vivid red stain spreading across the lower part of her nightgown and down her inner thighs. The sight was alarming. Qin Xia, what happened to you? Suchin rushed forward in alarm. He assumed her old leg wound had split open badly. Stay still. Let me look at your injury. He knelt down quickly to examine her legs. Don't look. Qin Xia panicked, her face burning bright red. She pressed her gown closed and shrank back, eyes glistening with embarrassment and distress. I'm fine, she mumbled, staring at the floor and refusing to meet his gaze. How can you be fine? There is so much blood. Convinced she was downplaying her injury to avoid trouble, Suchin reached for her hand to check for himself. It's not what you think. Qin Xia was close to tears, her voice tight with humiliation. Then what is it? Suchin asked, confused. Noticing her mortified manner combined with where the blood appeared, a plausible thought dawned on him. He stiffened. He asked cautiously in a low voice. Is it your monthly period? At Suchin's question, Qin Xia's face burned bright red. She wished she could dig a hole in the ground and hide herself away. How had he seen that? Qin Xia's reply was barely audible. If the log cabin had not been so quiet, Suchin would not have heard her at all. The moment he received her quiet confirmation, an awkward look crossed Suchin's face. As someone who had never dated, he had no idea how to handle such a situation. He could feel heat creeping up his own cheeks. He instinctively looked away, avoiding her lower body. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence hung in the air. Neither of them spoke. Only their quickened breathing echoed inside the small cabin. Several seconds passed. Suchin scratched the back of his head, at a loss for what to say. So, is there anything I can do to help? Seeing Qin Xia huddling tightly in the corner, he added another question. Can you move your legs comfortably? Do you need a hand? This remark made Qin Xia's already crimson face flush even deeper. No need. Please leave first. Qin Xia bowed her head even lower, her voice trembling with distress. All she wanted right now was to be left alone. Looking at her helpless, miserable state, Suchin did not leave. Instead, he frowned. Though he felt awkward, his mind raced. In her condition, she would be very uncomfortable, and hygiene was a critical concern. If an infection developed in this harsh world, the consequences would be severe. He took a deep breath as if reaching a major decision, his tone turning solemn. You can't stay like this. You need to get cleaned up. Without waiting for a response from Qin Xia, he turned to the supply pile and picked up a full bottle of mineral water and several alcohol-infused wet wipes. Qin Xia stared blankly at his actions, unsure what he intended to do. We don't have proper supplies for this situation. Use these wipes first to clean yourself, then wash the soiled clothing. Wash clothes with drinking water? Qin Xia was completely stunned. She knew full well how precious clean water was in this world. Yet he was willing to let her use an entire bottle just to wash a soiled garment. No, I can't do that. It's far too wasteful, she refused instinctively. There is no such thing as waste here. Suchin kept his back turned toward her. We can always find more water. It's much worse if you fall ill. He paused and softened his tone. Hurry. With that, he grabbed his iron pickaxe and strode out of the log cabin. He gently closed the newly repaired door behind him, giving her complete privacy. Qin Xia glanced at the closed wooden door, then at the bottle of clear water resting on the floor. A warm, indescribable feeling welled up inside her. Washing away her embarrassment and distress, she bit her lip, her eyes growing moist. Eventually, she picked up the bottle of water. She moved slowly toward the restroom, pushing through her physical discomfort. Cool running water cleansed her skin. Removing stickiness and grime, it eased her inner distress. She carefully washed the small piece of fabric, handling it with the utmost care. Outside the cabin near the mine pit, Suchin was also struggling to calm his mind. He swung his pickaxe hard, releasing his awkwardness and scattered thoughts against the hard rock. Cling, cling, cling. Sparks flew as fragments of stone scattered everywhere. After leveling up to level 3, his strength had increased significantly. Every strike left a deep mark on the solid rock wall. Unwanted images of what he had just witnessed kept drifting through his mind. Stop. Quit thinking about this. Suchin shook his head violently to push those thoughts aside. Now was not the time for such distractions. Survival came first. He drew a deep breath and banished all distracting thoughts, focusing entirely on mining. Upgrading the log cabin was his top priority. Once they had a level 2 cabin, they would no longer fear monster attacks at night and could sleep soundly. Driven by this thought, he swung his pickaxe faster and harder. Ding! You obtained raw stone ×1. Ding! You obtained raw stone ×1. System notifications chimed repeatedly as the number of raw stones in his backpack steadily rose. 88, 89, 90. He worked tirelessly like a machine, sweat soaking through his vest and highlighting the defined muscles of his arms. When his backpack held 99 raw stones, Suchin's heartbeat quickened. Only one more was needed. He steadied his breathing, gripped the pickaxe firmly, and struck hard at a protruding section of rock. Cling! He looked closely. Instead of shattering, the rock only bore a faint white scratch. Its color was unlike the surrounding gray, blue stone, showing a dull reddish, brown metallic sheen. What could this be? Before he could think further, a brand new system alert boomed inside his head. Ding! You obtained iron ore ×1. Iron ore. Suchin's eyes widened in shock as he stared at the reddish, brown rock, his heart pounding wildly. Not raw stone iron ore. He understood exactly what this meant: sharper weapons, sturdier armor, more efficient tools. I hope there is more of this. Suchin muttered to himself. Rather than mining the valuable vein immediately, he broke apart an ordinary adjacent rock. Ding! You obtained raw stone ×1. He now had the full 100 raw stones required for the cabin upgrade. Holding back the urge to upgrade right away, he turned his attention back to the iron-rich deposit. Taking a deep breath, he raised his pickaxe once more. Cling! A chunk of reddish, brown iron ore broke loose, noticeably heavier than regular raw stone. Ding! You obtained iron ore ×1. Great! Spirits lifted, Suchin swung his pickaxe faster, striking each spot with precise, experienced blows. Ding! You obtained iron ore ×1. When the last piece of iron ore dropped into his inventory, he counted 10 pieces total. The quantity was modest, yet it marked a huge leap forward for their group. He prepared to finish work when his pickaxe glanced against rock below the iron vein. Crack! The stone fractured cleanly. This layer was softer than the rest. Curious, Suchin delivered several more blows. Soon a large bed of dark, glossy rock was exposed, glistening faintly in dim light. He reached out to touch it. It felt hard yet not cold. He chipped off a fragment with his pickaxe. Ding! You obtained coal ×1. Coal deposit. Suchin's eyes went wide. He had just been worrying about fuel for smelting, and fortune had smiled upon him. Charcoal worked. Yet it burned less efficiently and cost precious wood supplies. With coal, smelting metal and keeping warm would become far more practical. It was exactly what he needed. Luck was truly on his side today. He set to work mining the coal seam without delay. Coal was softer than stone and easy to extract. Large chunks broke loose with only a few swings. Ding! You obtained coal ×1. Ding! You obtained coal ×1. Upon mining his 10th piece of coal, brilliant golden light wrapped around his body. Ding! Congratulations! You have reached level 4. Another level up. Warm energy surged through every part of his body. Suchin felt an overwhelming surge of power. The muscles in his arms grew more sharply defined, and firm abdominal outlines appeared beneath his shirt. This is the strength of level 4. He felt safer than he ever had before. I mean, aren't we doing pretty well? Yushi wiped dust from her nose and smiled at Xia Nin beside her. Yeah. Xia Nin nodded firmly as she checked supplies inside her storage backpack. Now we can show Suchin we aren't useless. Yushi giggled. Don't say that. I think Suchin is actually quite decent. Xia Nin stared at her in surprise. Yushi grew uncomfortable under her gaze and gave her a light shove. Why are you looking at me like that? That's a first. Has that ever happened before? What are you talking about? It's the first time you've praised a guy. Yushi looked flustered and waved her hands. You must be misremembering. I'm not. There is no way I would forget. Yushi spotted something in the distance and quickly cut her friend off. I mean, look over there. Xia Nin followed her line of sight and brightened, dropping the topic. Suchin, we're back. Suchin turned around and saw Xia Nin and Yushi returning. They were covered in dust and worn out, yet clearly excited by their haul. How did it go? Suchin walked over with a smile. It went amazing. Eager to show off, Xia Nin opened her storage space like an excited little hamster. Look, lots of purified water bottles, a whole box of instant noodles, 20 ham sausages. Yushi added gently, we also found a larger medical kit with more supplies inside. Their haul exceeded Suchin's expectations. With this food and water, the group would not worry about basic provisions for at least half a month. You both worked really hard. Good job. Suchin spoke sincerely. This was their first independent expedition, and their results were outstanding. Praise from Suchin made the two girls beam, their fatigue fading away. The three of them headed back toward the log cabin together. Xia, we're home. Look what we brought. Xia Nin called out loudly upon entering. She fell abruptly silent. Both she and Yushi wrinkled their noses. A faint, unfamiliar scent hung in the air. As young women, they recognized what it meant. Their gazes drifted toward Qin Xia, sitting stiffly on the bed. Qin Xia tensed up and tried to pull the blanket around herself. Yushi's eyes swept across the bed and noticed a damp dark, purple piece of fabric laid neatly on top of the folded quilt. Seeing its style, Yushi's cheeks flushed. She quickly looked away, pretending she had seen nothing. Xia Nin spotted the fabric too, her mouth falling open. She glanced from the cloth to Qin Xia's crimson face and connected the dots. Awkward tension filled the small room. Ahem. Suchin broke the silence first. Acting oblivious, he clapped his hands to draw everyone's attention. Everyone is here. Let's tally up all our supplies. His suggestion eased the awkward atmosphere. Greatly relieved, Qin Xia composed herself and began reporting. We have 360 units of wood in total. Including what you mined just now, raw stones total 121. Xia Inin counted on her fingers. We have 37 bottles of water. Food includes instant noodles, ham sausages, beef jerky, biscuits, potato chips. Tools, a drone, medical kits, paper, pens, an iron pickaxe, an iron shovel. Yu Shi continued. 10 iron ore, 10 coal. Suchin listened and mentally calculated their resources. Wood was abundant. Raw stones were sufficient. Food, water, and medical supplies would sustain them for some time. Their stockpile was quite substantial. All required materials are ready. Suchin looked at each of them, his eyes resting on the system panel he had long awaited. Let's upgrade the cabin right now. We're finally upgrading. Excitement bubbled out of Xia Nin, who grabbed Yu Shi's arm and shook it eagerly. At last, our new home. Infected by her excitement, Yu Shi wore a bright smile. Qin Xia did not shout, yet quiet excitement shone in her clear eyes. Suchin smiled, seeing their joy. He focused his mind on the upgrade prompt. Consume wood times 200, raw stone times 100 to upgrade level 1 log cabin to level 2. Yes, Suchin confirmed without hesitation. Blinding golden light burst forth from the center of the cabin. The radiance was so bright that everyone closed their eyes. A gentle force pushed all 4 people outside. When they opened their eyes, they stared in complete shock. The shabby small wooden hut was transforming dramatically. Its floor space more than doubled, expanding from 40 square meters to nearly 90 square meters. The worn-out old roof vanished, replaced by a solid, sloped wooden roof built for good drainage. Glass panes materialized in the walls, flooding the interior with natural light. The golden glow faded, and the system notification sounded. Congratulations! Your log cabin has been upgraded to level 2. Space expanded. Interior area increased to 90 square meters. Structural reinforcement, defenses greatly improved, wall thickness increased to 20 centimeters, layout optimized, space divided automatically into 1 living room, 2 bedrooms, and 1 washroom. New alarm function. An alert will trigger if wall integrity drops below 70%. Will forcibly wake residents during sleep. An alarm system. That meant they no longer needed to keep watch overnight. Suchin felt a surge of joy. Wow, Xia Nin whispered in awe, rubbing her eyes, half convinced she was dreaming. This is our new home? Suchin pushed open the heavy new log door. Beyond it lay a bright, spacious 30-square-meter living room with smooth wooden flooring. Inside stood a wooden tea table, 4 stools, a simple long sofa, and their workbench and furnace in one corner. 3 brand new wooden doors stood at the far end of the main room. Separate rooms. Xia Nin cried out excitedly. She rushed toward the leftmost door. She pushed it open and gasped loudly. It's a real washroom. Yu Shi and Qin Xia hurried over. The washroom was compact and simply fitted. It held a basic squat-style toilet, an overhead water storage platform, a wooden wash stand, and an empty section intended for bathing. No running water was available, however. Even so, the 3 girls were overjoyed. Proper sanitation felt like an invaluable gift. Wait, where are the drainage pipes? Suchin quickly regained his composure. A normal washroom required pipes to carry waste away. He had checked outside and found none. Perhaps they ran underground? He shook his head. Logic from the old world could not always apply here. After all, no ordinary house could rebuild itself in mere seconds. Let's look at the other rooms. Suchin smiled and opened the middle door. Behind it was a 20-square-meter bedroom furnished simply. There was only 1 bed, neatly made with soft-looking clean sheets and bedding. He then pushed open the rightmost door. The layout inside was identical to the middle room, another single bed. And here was the problem. 2 rooms, 2 beds. 4 of them. The cheerful mood that had prevailed moments before turned awkward in an instant. Xia Nin was the first to collect herself. A faint blush rose on her cheeks. Quickly regaining her easy-going demeanor, she linked arms with Yu Shui and declared, I'll share a bed with Sister Shui. We can squeeze together. At her words, Yu Shui's face also flushed, but she nodded in agreement. All eyes instinctively turned to the remaining 2 people, Suchin and Qin Xia. The air seemed to freeze. Qin Shia's cool, pretty face flushed visibly, the colors spreading from her ears down to her neck. She avoided Su Chen's gaze, twisting the hem of her clothes nervously, her mind in turmoil. Share a room with him? Sleep in the same bed? That simply wouldn't do. Su Chen also felt the awkwardness. He coughed and broke the silence. Look, why don't the three of you girls take the bedrooms? I'll sleep on the sofa in the living room. No. Surprisingly, Qin Xia was the one to object. She looked at him earnestly. You're the core of our group. You need proper rest at night. Besides, the living room is right by the front door. If monsters break in, sleeping there would put you in too much danger. Xia Yining nodded vigorously in agreement. Right? You can't sleep on the sofa. Say, what if we do this? Yushui cut in at the right moment. We take turns sharing a room with Su Chen. 10 days per person. Would that work? Qin Xia and Xia Yining stared. The suggestion actually made sense. After all, men and women ought to keep a proper distance. It wouldn't be fair to make one girl share quarters with him the whole time. Even so, Qin Xia felt a hollow twinge inside. She did not particularly like this arrangement. Very well. I'll take the first 10 days with Su Chen. Qin Xia spoke softly to the others. Then she walked straight into the right-hand bedroom. Su Chen stood where he was and rubbed the bridge of his nose, feeling helpless and flustered. He caught Xia Yining's teasing, curious gaze, and had no choice but to follow her into the room. Awkwardness hung heavy inside the bedroom. Qin Xia stood rigid by the window, her back to the door, staring out at the roiling mist. Not knowing what to say, Su Chen spoke awkwardly. Don't worry. I won't do anything out of line. MHM, the house has leveled up, but we're far from being safe. Su Chen refocused, turning toward Qin Xia. Some of the tension drained from her shoulders. She turned to face him, her eyes questioning. What do you plan to do? Come with me. Su Chen walked back out into the living room. Xia Yining and Yushui had been whispering together. They jumped, sitting bolt upright and pretending nothing was happening when the pair reappeared. Everyone over here. We need a meeting. Su Chen clapped his hands to get their attention. The four gathered around the sofas and stools in the small living room, the atmosphere turning serious. Our food and water supplies are sufficient for now. Our only real threat comes from outside, Su Chen said bluntly. Last night the zombies managed to bash through the doors of level 1 log cabins. We have no guarantee they can't break level 2 ones. So we have to strengthen our outer defenses. Also, our supplies are scattered all over the floor. It's messy. Food won't keep well sitting exposed. We need proper storage furniture. He paused and glanced at 10 gleaming pieces of iron ore sitting in the corner. Then he began assigning tasks. Xia, you take the drone. Recon everything within 4 kilometers of our cabin. Prioritize locating a reliable water source. We can't keep relying on bottled water from loot crates forever. Qin Xia's eyes lit up. She nodded solemnly. Leave it to me. Shui, Yining, you two are with me, Su Chen said to the other 2 girls. We have 3 jobs: build outer fortifications, smelt iron to craft weapons and armor, and make indoor furnishings. Got it. Yushui answered at once. Huh? More work. Xia Yining's face fell. But under Su Chen's gaze, she swallowed her complaint and nodded quickly. I'm fine with it. Good. Let's get started right away. With the plan set, the group got to work efficiently. Qin Xia picked up the drone controller and began her survey. Meanwhile, Su Chen led Yushui and Xia Yining over to the corner of the cabin. Let's get the furnace running first. Su Chen stepped up to the furnace and opened its interface. It was simple: 1 slot for fuel, 1 for raw materials. He loaded all 10 pieces of coal into the fuel slot, then carefully placed the 10 lumps of iron ore into the raw material slot. Whoosh! Fed by coal, flames roared inside the furnace. The air around it worked under intense heat. This will take a while. Let's work on our defenses in the meantime. Su Chen opened the workbench crafting list with his mind. Wooden spike trap, requires wood times 3. Simple to craft, yet highly effective. We'll lay a ring of wooden spike traps around the cabin, Su Chen said, gesturing at the open ground surrounding their home. Don't space them too far apart. Any monster approaching from any direction will have to cross the trap zone. The 3 set straight to work. 1 crude stake, base trap after another came off the workbench. Su Chen, the strongest of them, hauled the heavy traps into position and drove them firmly into the soil. Though less strong, Yushui and Xia Yining carried 1 trap between them, struggling to keep up with his pace. Beneath the sun, sweat soaked their clothes. Xia Yining grew flushed and breathless, several times tempted to quit. But seeing Yushui laboring on without complaint beside her, she held her grievances back. An hour later, 20 wooden spike traps encircled the cabin, forming a grim, reliable line of defense. Just then, a soft ding sounded from the furnace. Suchin went to check. Only 2 units of coal had been consumed. All the iron ore was gone, and in its place lay 10 glowing iron ingots. Success! He activated the workbench mentally. Craft iron axe. Consume iron ingot ×2. Would ×2 to craft iron axe? Yes. System notice. Iron axe crafted successfully. A brand new axe materialized on the workbench. It had a sturdy wooden haft, and its blade glinted with cold, sharp steel. Sunlight glinted off its razor, sharp edge. Suchin picked up the axe, stepped outside, and swung it at a tree trunk as thick as a bowl. Swish! With one clean strike, the trunk, which would have taken ages to notch with their old rusty axe, split open. One more blow would bring it down. Whoa! Xia Yinin's eyes went wide. That's insanely sharp. With this, we can gather wood many times faster, Yushui said delightedly. Suchin nodded in satisfaction. This tool would massively speed up their wood collection. Without pausing, he returned to the workbench. Craft iron chestplate. Consume iron ingot ×8 to craft iron chestplate? Yes. The remaining 8 iron ingots vanished from his inventory, and a metallic breastplate appeared before them. Crudely forged, it nevertheless looked solid, its cold sheen promising great defensive power. Wow, armor. Put it on, Suchin. Xia Yinin was more excited than he was. Suchin slipped the chestplate on. Cold weight settled over him, bringing an unprecedented sense of safety. He moved, the plate fit well and barely hindered his mobility, though it was noticeably heavy. How is it? Meeting the girl's expectant eyes, he smiled. I think I could now take a direct swipe from a zombie and survive. You look awesome. Like an ancient general. Xia Yinin's eyes sparkled. Yushui also watched him, fully armed, with undisguised admiration. With outer defenses and new gear finished, the 3 headed back indoors. The sun was beginning to sink toward evening. Last item, storage chest. Suchin spent 30 units of wood to craft a large chest, half as tall as a person. Storage chest. Capacity, 50 slots. Special effect, built in thermal array, greatly slows food spoilage. Perfect. Our food won't go bad so easily anymore. Everyone helped sort and stow all their provisions and miscellaneous items inside. The living room grew tidy at once. At that moment, Qin Xia, who had been sitting quietly on the sofa, let out a happy gasp. Come quick. I found a river. I found it. A water source. The other 3 crowded around her. On the drone controller's screen, aerial footage played. The infrared image was grainy, yet unmistakably showed a river. Roughly 2 kilometers southeast of their cabin, a clear stream wound like a ribbon through dense forest. Well done, Xia. Even Suchin could not hide his excitement. It's not too far away, and the flow looks strong, Qin Xia said, guiding the drone along the watercourse. If only we could dig a channel to divert water right to the cabin. No more words were needed. Everyone grasped her idea. If they pulled it off, their water crisis would be solved for good. Hopes for the future bloomed in all their minds. By this point night had fully fallen. Coals still burned in the furnace, casting light and warmth through the house. The 4 gathered in the living room for dinner, instant, noodle soup and 2 tins of canned beef. Weary yet satisfied smiles rested on every face. Outside lay their newly laid spike traps. They possessed sharp new weapons, ample food, and had located a future water supply. Everything was looking up. Let's check the group chat channel. I wonder how everyone else is holding up, Xia Yinin said through mouthfuls of noodles. Suchin opened the chat. In only one day, the online user count had dropped from 92,000 to 85,000. The messages were even more despairing than the day before. Chin AI Cabin 73589, help, does anyone have food? I'll give anything, just give me a bite to eat. Big Brain Busta Cabin 23411, pick me. I'll do anything for a single loaf of bread. 3 Strikes Bone Demon Cabin 11111, don't get your hopes up. Nobody has extra supplies. Yesterday I watched neighbors fight to the death over half a biscuit. Shogun Buddy Cabin 21313, why don't you go search outside? I opened a treasure chest today with 5 bottles of water and a big pack of ration bars. Love Sunair Cabin 14124, we did search. Found nothing. 3 days straight. We even lost one teammate. Disciple of Medicine Master Cabin 45321, are you crazy? Monsters are still out there even in daylight. Blonde Feet Cabin 95270. Damn it. They attacked again last night. Smashed our door. If my A-rank talent hadn't saved us, our whole group would be dead. Fufufufu Cabin 82738. Thank you, Lord Suchin. The water we traded for yesterday saved our whole cabin. Are you selling water today? We gathered lots of wood. Big Brain Busted Cabin 23411. Lord Suchin, take me. Just give me one bottle of water and a biscuit. I'll do anything. Fufufu's message triggered a flood. Countless people at mentioned Suchin, begging for trades and offering all sorts of goods. Reading those desperate pleas while looking down at his steaming bowl of noodles, Xia Nin, Yushui, and Qin Xia fell silent and lost their appetites. Once again, they realized how fortunate they were to be inside cabin 10086. Suchin watched the scroll of messages with a calm expression. He was no savior, and his power had limits. His only priority was protecting his own group and surviving. Finish eating and get some rest. We have plenty of work tomorrow, he said quietly. Dinner ended under a heavy mood. Xia Nin and Yushui finished their meal and retreated to their bedroom. Only Suchin and Qin Xia remained in the living room. I'm going to bed too, Qin Xia said, barely audible. She tried to slip toward the bedroom. Wait. Qin Xia froze. Her heartbeat quickened. How should we arrange sleeping? Suchin asked awkwardly. There was no avoiding this question. Though larger than their old single bed, it was only 1.5 meters wide. Sharing it meant they would inevitably be in close contact. Qin Xia's cheeks burned. The normally decisive young woman twisted her clothing, unable to find words. Seeing how flustered she was, Suchin sighed and offered a solution. Let's split it down the middle. Qin Xia gave a soft consent. They walked into the bedroom one after another, neither speaking. Suchin could hear both their heartbeats loud and clear. He let Qin Xia climb into bed first. She got in from the right side. Suchin lay down beside her on his side. A faint, sweet fragrance of young woman surrounded him. Their proximity made his body grow tense. For Qin Xia it was no different. Her heart hammered, her face burning hot. Never in her life had she shared a bed with a boy. Every passing second felt endless, a test of self-control. Then came a soft rustling sound outside the window. At first neither paid it mind. In this forest, wind-stirring foliage was normal. Soon, however, the noise grew wrong. Louder, closer. Suchin frowned sharply and sat bolt upright, alert toward the window. Qin Xia jumped in fright. What is it? She whispered nervously. Shoo. Suchin held a finger to his lips and listened intently. Low, beast-like growls and gurgling snarls drifted over, identical to the zombies that had assaulted them the night before. Suchin's expression turned grim. The footsteps drew right up to the cabin. Then came a heavy crash. Thud. Monsters were slamming into their newly laid spike traps. There was the wet sound of wood-piercing flesh, followed by an agonized shriek. One of the creatures had been impaled. Roar. The scream echoed through the night. The neighboring bedroom door flew open. Xia Nin and Yushui stumbled out, terror written across their faces. They're back. Their answer was a crescendo of violent impacts. This time the blows landed not only on the front door, but against walls all around the cabin. The monsters were trying to break through the upgraded level 2 log cabin. Roar. Alongside the crashes came ominous creaking, as if the wooden structure might give way. Sharp claws seemed to scrape frantically against the thick log walls. More than one, there are many. Suchin's expression turned extremely grave. He slipped on his iron breastplate. Gripping a stone shield and iron axe tightly in his hands, he stared fixedly toward the window. Thankfully, this was an inner window, blocked by a 20-centimeter thick hardwood board. Otherwise, the zombies would surely have broken in. By the glow from the furnace inside the house, he peered through the glass pane. Countless dark figures lurched and thrashed wildly outside. Staggering, stiff-bodied shapes, the same zombies he had seen the night before. 1, 2, 3, 7 in total. 7 zombies had completely surrounded the log cabin. Oh my god, so many of them. Yushui covered her mouth, despair welling up inside her. Xia Nin's legs gave way beneath her, and she sank heavily to the floor. Tears streamed down her cheeks like broken beads. Qin Xia stood beside Suchin, her face drained of all color. She fought to keep her composure, yet her hands, clamped tight around a burning torch, trembled uncontrollably. Still, she knew she could not fall apart right now. Suchin needed her help. Boom. 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 The pounding continued, and the whole cabin shook faintly. This time, however, the 20-centimeter thick log walls showed formidable defensive power. No matter how savagely the zombies slammed into them, the timbers only let out dull thuds, with not the slightest sign of giving way. After battering for a while, the zombies seemed to realize these walls were far sturdier than the ones from the previous night. They stopped charging. Then came wet, scraping sounds. They were clawing furiously at the soil around the cabin's foundations, trying to dig their way inside. "They're digging at the base of the house," Xia Inin shrieked in alarm. Before long, however, their efforts proved futile. Upgraded, the cabin's foundations rested on hard bluestone slabs instead of plain dirt. Zombie claws screeched against the stone, leaving only pale scratch marks. They could not break through at all. Grown, foiled once more, the 7 zombies paced restlessly outside, growling in frustration. They did not leave. They simply encircled the cabin, as if waiting for something. Inside, the 4 people held their breath, hearts in their throats. Suchin frowned hard, assessing their situation. 7 zombies, more than twice the number they had faced last time. If they kept loitering out there, no one could predict how things would end. His physical stats sat at LV.4, granting him greatly enhanced strength and speed. Clad in an iron breastplate and wielding a stone shield, his defense was substantial. His weapon was no longer a stone spear, but an iron axe. 3 girls could also offer support and distraction. Should he charge out and fight? The thought flashed through his mind. Striking first and eliminating all 7 zombies might buy them a peaceful night. Yet the risk was enormous. One misstep, a single zombie wound, and the consequences would be catastrophic. He could not take that chance. While Suchin hesitated, the restless zombies outside appeared to run out of patience. They circled the cabin several more times. Convinced they could not get in, they let out frustrated snarls and shambled away into the thick night fog. Gone. Suchin blinked and hurried to the window to check. Silence fell outside. The dark shapes had vanished entirely. After waiting a little longer to confirm there was no further movement, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. "That scared me half to death." Xia Nin collapsed on the ground, gasping for air. Yushi leaned against the wall, soaked in cold sweat. "It's over at last. Get some sleep." "It looks like attacks of this scale cannot breach our home," Suchin said after a moment's thought. The 3 girls nodded. Though fear lingered, they trusted his judgment and did as he suggested. Suchin had never been wrong before. Some time later, Suchin woke to a faint pleasant fragrance. He opened his eyes and realized he had pulled Qin Xia into his arms in his sleep. Her usual cool, beautiful face lay close before him. Her head rested on his arm. Long eyelashes twitching slightly, her breathing slow and steady. Suchin froze. He could feel the soft weight of her body against his. He tried to pull his arm free without waking her. Caught between 2 choices, he heard Qin Xia give a soft murmur, stirring awake. Panicked, Suchin squeezed his eyes shut and pretended to sleep. Qin Xia slowly opened her eyes, still groggy. When she realized she was curled up against a man, her mind went blank. Her face flushed bright red. She scrambled to pull away. The narrow bed threw her off balance. She cried out as she tipped toward the floor. "Watch out." No longer able to feign sleep, Suchin's eyes flew open. He reached out, caught her firmly around the waist, and held her steady in his arms. Their eyes met. The air hung heavy. Suchin looked down at her. Qin Xia pulled herself free, cheeks burning, hurried out of the room, and shut the door behind her. Suchin stood there, staring at his hands, and let out a bitter laugh. He glanced at his more defined, muscular frame brought on by the LV.4 upgrade, and shook his head to himself. He had grown stronger physically, yet self-control still needed work. To avoid further awkwardness, he stepped out of the bedroom. He took a deep breath to steady himself and opened his daily intelligence interface. A new day, new options. He picked Supply Intelligence without hesitation. "You have selected Supply Intelligence." 3 lines of golden text appeared before his eyes. 700 meters due west of the log cabin, inside a vine-covered cave, lies a supply crate holding unexpected valuables. 1,000 meters southeast of the cabin grows a thicket of red berry bushes. The berries are safe to eat, sweet, and sour in flavor. 2,000 meters due north of the cabin, beneath a large tree, is a supply crate that may ease your current urgent shortages. 3 tips again. Great. At that moment, the bedroom door opened. Qin Xia stepped out. Traces of blush still lingered on her face, but her gaze was calm once more. She walked over to Su Chen. What intelligence did you get today? Su Chen told her the 3 pieces of information. Excitement flickered across Qin Xia's face. Let me go with you this time. Su Chen looked at her in surprise. She met his gaze unflinchingly. My leg has mostly healed. I want to contribute to the group. Besides, drone reconnaissance needs on-site support. We have to survey that river to plan future water diversion. Her reasoning was sound, and Su Chen could find no valid objection. All right. Once they had agreed on their plan, they woke Yushugi and Xia Nin. When told what they intended to do, Xia Nin raised her hand at once. Shuyi and I will stay home to chop wood and mine stone. We'll have piles of timber and rock ready when you get back. Su Chen and Qin Xia slung on their backpacks, grabbed their weapons and the drone, and left the cabin. Morning mist hung thicker than usual. They traveled in silence, constantly watching for threats. They decided to head for the northern supply point first. The path was rough and muddy. Strange noises drifted out of the fog around them. Fortunately, they met no danger and soon reached their destination. After digging briefly with an iron shovel, they struck something hard, a standard, issue green supply crate. When they pried it open, bandages, gauze, disinfectant alcohol, antibiotics, and several adrenaline syringes lay neatly inside. More medical supplies. Su Chen was not sure what to think. They already had plenty of medicine. Yet the antibiotics and adrenaline made the trip worthwhile. Qin Xia and Su Chen stowed everything in their packs and set off for the second location. Bright, red berries hung heavy on the bushes, glinting like rubies through the mist. This supply site brought real joy. Inside another crate were 5 large cuts of raw pork and 2 sacks of salt. Real meat at last. Su Chen and Qin Xia exchanged delighted glances. They also gathered berries. As the intelligence had stated, the fruit was safe. Su Chen tasted one. It was pleasantly sweet and sour, a welcome source of vitamins. Finally, they headed for the last location, a cave hidden behind dense vines. Su Chen hacked the vines away with his iron axe, and they stepped inside. The cave was dry. In one corner sat a large metal trunk. When they opened it, they found 2 heavy suits of protective clothing woven from special fibers and leather. Each set came with goggles and gloves. Bulky as they looked, they offered impressive protection. Incredible. Su Chen lifted one suit, feeling its tough texture, overjoyed. With this gear, their odds against zombies would improve drastically. Also inside the trunk were several brand new pairs of women's underwear. The atmosphere turned slightly awkward. Qin Xia stuck out her tongue, quietly tucked them into her backpack and pretended nothing had happened. Su Chen coughed and looked away. Having collected all the supplies, they did not head straight back. Following Qin Xia's memory, they walked toward the stream. After pushing through thick woodland, they heard gurgling water. A stream 3 or 4 meters wide stretched out before them, its water clear enough to see pebbles and small fish swimming on the riverbed. Real running water. Qin Xia knelt down, cupping cold water in her hands, awe in her eyes. If we dig a canal, no, that would cost too much labor, Su Chen murmured, thinking fast. Maybe we can carve hollow wooden pipes to channel water all the way to the cabin. Building wooden pipework would demand plenty of work, yet it was far more practical than digging a 2-kilometer-long ditch. Qin Xia nodded in agreement. They marked the spot and prepared to leave. Su Chen, look. Qin Xia tugged at his sleeve and whispered, pointing upstream. Su Chen followed her gaze and drew in a sharp breath. 50-odd meters away, a graceful Sika deer bent its head to drink from the stream, alert and poised. The deer sensed their stares. It lifted its head, locked eyes with them, then bounded off into the trees and vanished in the fog. A living deer, Qin Xia whispered in wonder. This world is not only full of monsters. Launch the drone and scan the surroundings, Su Chen ordered. Qin Xia nodded, pulled out the controller and sent the small drone aloft. As it climbed, their field of view widened. Through the thermal imaging feed, they spotted many living creatures, hares bounding across grassland, wild boars rooting at tree roots, flocks of birds flying far overhead. Then the drone camera swept over a hillside. A familiar shape appeared on screen, a lone log cabin identical to their old level 1 dwelling, sitting in an open patch roughly 1 kilometer away. Another survivor's cabin. Qin Xia's voice trembled. Though they had read about other survivors on the group chat, seeing another outpost in person felt entirely different. Allies? Or enemies? Sharp wariness rose in Su Chen's mind. Qin Xia tried to zoom the camera for a clearer view. She gave a small gasp and jerked backward. Quiet. Su Chen reacted instantly. He clamped a hand over her mouth and pulled her behind a large tree, lowering his voice. What did you see? Muffled sounds escaped Qin Xia. Her eyes wide with fright, she pointed frantically at the drone controller's screen. Su Chen glanced down. His pupils constricted. On the thermal feed, 2 distinct human heat signatures lay hidden in a bush very close by. They were being watched. A cold sensation, like being stalked by a venomous snake, ran from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Stay still, make no noise. Su Chen's mind raced as he forced himself to stay calm. Pretend we have noticed nothing and withdraw slowly. Shaken, Qin Xia nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Keep the drone running. Keep them in sight. Su Chen spoke softly close to her ear. We leave now. Do not run. Walk normally. He had no idea how many hostiles waited out there, nor whether they meant harm. Sneaking about like this was hardly a good sign. Starting a fight out in the open would put both of them in grave danger. With trembling fingers, Qin Xia obeyed, lifting the drone higher. They stood and walked back along the path they had come, acting as though nothing was wrong. Shortly after they departed, grass rustled in the bush less than 20 meters from their previous position. 2 men stepped out from concealment. The leading man was tall and lean, built for toughness, dressed in heavily worn sportswear. Triangular eyes glinted with menace. A hideous scar stretched from the corner of his left eye down to his jaw, twisting as he spoke. His name was Ma Kuei, former dorm leader of Dorm 10087. Behind him stood a shorter, scrawny man called Li Go. Gaunt and unkempt-haired, his small eyes darted restlessly. Li Go breathed in the faint scent left by Qin Xia, a look of greedy appreciation on his face, and lowered his voice to speak to Ma Kuei. Kuei-ji, that woman is really something. What looks? Ma Kuei ignored his crude remarks. Narrowing his triangular eyes, he stared hard in the direction Su Chen and Qin Xia had vanished. He possessed D-rank talent enhanced group eyesight. Not top-tier, yet extremely useful within this heavy fog. This team-oriented talent boosted visual acuity for himself and nearby allies, cutting through mist up to 100 meters away and letting him track targets clearly. He had observed Qin Xia plainly a moment ago. Quite a prize, Ma Kuei muttered, licking chapped lips. Li Go's eyes lit up. We could take her back to our base. Ma Kuei's own eyes flashed with greed, yet reason quickly reined him in. That man beside her does not look easy to deal with. What is that remote in her hand? Could it be some kind of weapon? He pondered for a moment, then gave a cold order. Follow them. Do not get spotted. Got it. Li Go answered excitedly. The 2 moved forward like wolves stalking prey, keeping out of sight. Ma Kuei's enhanced group eyesight proved invaluable. Through the fog, he could make out the faint shapes of Su Chen and Qin Xia 100 meters ahead. Thick mist blocked Su Chen and Qin Xia from seeing them in return. They tailed at a safe distance. Li Go kept chattering along the way. Kuei-ji, why don't we just rush in, kill that guy and grab the woman? Shut up and watch, Ma Kuei cut him off irritably. He thought far more carefully than Li Go. For 2 people to venture so far from their base, they must hold some advantage. He would not strike before learning their opponent's true strength. Half an hour later, Su Chen and Qin Xia disappeared beyond an open clearing. Ma Kuei and Li Go crept to its edge and hid behind a gnarled tree to peer out. Their eyes nearly bulged out of their heads. Holy hell! Li Go swore, stunned. In the center of the clearing stood an imposing, well-built level 2 log cabin. Thick log walls, a neat wooden roof, broad glass windows. Nothing failed to show how extraordinary it was. Ma Kuei and his group's wooden hut was still at the most primitive first-level state. Wind whistled through its cracks, turning it into an ice-cold cavern at night. Compared to the place right in front of them, their hut might as well have been a shabby hovel. Is this really a wooden hut? Li Go rubbed his eyes, convinced he was seeing things. Kuei-go, how on earth did they manage this? Ma Kuei did not reply. His heart hammered wildly in his chest. Shock and greed blazed in his eyes. He immediately activated his talent and peered toward the hut's window. Through the clear glass pane, he caught sight of Qin Xia, the striking woman who had gone inside moments earlier, as well as 2 other women. One was a sunny beauty with slightly wavy short hair and a well-proportioned figure. The other was a cute young girl with round cheeks, her hair tied into twin ponytails. 3 women. 3 women, each with a distinct charm and outstanding looks. Li Go followed his line of sight, utterly captivated. His whole body trembled with excitement, his voice cracking. Kuega. Three gorgeous women. And that one, she looks just like a doll. Ma Kue's breathing grew heavy. This place was like a paradise. Kuega, what are we waiting for? Let's charge in. Get rid of that man, and we can take everything here for ourselves. Li Go could no longer hold back his eagerness and urged him on. Shut up. Ma Kue slapped him hard across the back of his head, sending Li Go stumbling forward. Have you lost your wits? Ma Kue snarled in a low, icy voice. Look at that building. Look all around it. There is a ring of wooden spike traps set up. How exactly do you plan to charge in? Are you going to use your own head? Li Go shrank back, falling silent, yet his eyes remained fixed firmly on the hut, filled with unwilling longing. Ma Kue himself was torn by conflicting impulses. Greed gnawed at his sanity like a venomous snake. More than anyone, he longed to rush in, kill the man, and seize the hut and its inhabitants for himself. Yet reason held him back. Anyone capable of upgrading a hut to this standard possessed great power. The traps around the walls spoke of sharp defensive awareness. Their willingness to venture far from home as a pair showed confidence in their strength. Kuega, are we just going to let it go? Li Go asked reluctantly. Let it go. A malicious smirk tugged at Ma Kue's lips. A prize this valuable is right under our noses. We are not walking away. He narrowed his triangular eyes, a glint flickering within them. Our odds are poor if we strike now. But we have plenty of time. We will observe first and learn about their talents. When the moment comes, we will attack. Ideally, we can pick them off one by one. Pick them off one by one? What does that mean? You fool. 4 against 4. Even with 3 women on their side, can you guarantee none of us will get hurt? Then what should we do? Our advantage is our long-range vision. We have to make good use of it. Head back to our hut and fetch the other 2. We will keep watch here every day and strike when they split up. Li Go's eyes lit up at those words. You are brilliant, Kuego. Let's go back for now. Starting today, we come here to keep watch every single day. I refuse to believe they will never make a mistake. Ma Kue threw one last greedy glance toward the hut half-veiled in mist, as if gazing at the palace he would one day own. Then he led Li Go silently back into the thick fog. Inside the wooden hut. As soon as Su Chen and Qin Xia returned home, Xia Nin and Yushui hurried over to greet them. You're back. How did it go? Did you find anything good? We brought back quite a lot. Su Chen spoke as he unloaded items from his backpack one after another, raw pork, salt, a large supply of medicine, and 2 sets of high-grade protective suits. When they spotted several brand-new lace undergarments, Xia Nin and Yushui exchanged awkward glances and stole looks at the blushing Qin Xia. Ahem. Su Chen cleared his throat to pull everyone's focus back, his expression turning grave. We found supplies, but we also ran into serious trouble. His somber tone dragged the atmosphere in the room straight into tension. Did you run into monsters? Yushui asked anxiously, something more dangerous than monsters. Su Chen took a deep breath and said heavily, we have been marked by people from another hut. He recounted how they had been watched beside the stream and tailed all the way back to their home. What? Someone followed us. Xia Inin paled in fright and instinctively hid behind Yushui. Yushui's face also darkened. She glanced out the window, as if countless pairs of eyes were staring at them from within the fog. What do they want? Are they after our supplies? It is not only supplies. Su Chen's gaze turned cold. In this place, human beings can be far more terrifying than monsters. He could easily imagine what thoughts their well-built second-level hut and its 3 female residents had stirred in the stalkers. A heavy sense of crisis settled over every person in the room. Then, what should we do? Can we call the police? Xia Inin asked through tear-filled eyes, voicing a naive thought. Call the police? Who would answer? Su Chen let out a bitter laugh. In this place, we can only rely on ourselves. He stood and paced across the living room, his mind racing. The enemies had tracked them here yet held back from attacking immediately. That meant they were wary. It also proved they were not overwhelmingly powerful. If they had been, they would have struck without hesitation. They were waiting for an opening, waiting for their guard to drop, or for one of them to go out alone. No matter what, a blade hung over their heads, ready to fall at any second. An idea struck him. With his biological intelligence talent, he might be able to learn more about these intruders. Relief washed over Su Chen. Stay calm. He halted his pacing abruptly. Tomorrow I will use my talent to gather intelligence. We may uncover useful clues. If their strength is weak enough, we will take the initiative and strike first. His words steadied the three frightened women. We will follow your lead. Qin Xia declared first, fire burning in her eyes. Right? We will fight them. Yushui gritted her teeth. I am not scared either. I can go chop wood. Xia Nin still trembled, yet resolve shone in her eyes. Good. Suchen felt slightly reassured seeing their renewed spirit. From this moment on, no more full night rests. Our only goal is to raise each of our levels above level 3 as quickly as possible. After drawing up their plan, Ma Kuei and Li Go retraced their silent path through the fog and soon arrived back at their own hut, the very hut Su Chen and Qin Xia had spotted earlier. Compared to Su Chen's fortress-like second-level hut, this place was barely better than a refugee shelter. It remained a rundown first-level hut with no repairs. Cold wind gusted through cracks in the walls, and the whole structure looked ready to collapse. Dim light filled the interior, supplied only by an old built-in oil lamp. The air reeked of sweat and foot odor. The other two men inside rushed over at the sound of their return. One was Zhao Jiahu, nearly 1.9 meters tall, heavily muscled like a standing bear. A sports college student, he had brawn but little brains. The other was Sun Bo, a thin, short graduate student behind thick glasses. He looked scholarly, yet fear lingered in his eyes. Kuega, Goga, you're back. Did you find anything to eat? Zhao Jiahu rumbled, hunger shining in his eyes. They had not eaten a full meal for an entire day. Aside from weapons, their hut held only a few bottles of water. Ignoring the question about food, Li Go burst forth, wild with excitement. Food? Is that all you ever think about? We made a huge discovery today. A huge discovery? Did you find another treasure chest? No. Wild fruit then? Nope. Stop guessing, Huzi. Let him tell us, Sun Bo suggested. Li Go grinned. We found another wooden hut. It is big and sturdy, and 3 beautiful women live inside. He gestured wildly as he spoke. Women. Zhao Jiahu's eyes lit up, his breathing growing heavy. Kuega, is that true? Sun Bo pushed his glasses up his nose, sounding skeptical. Ma Kuei paid no mind to Li Go's over-the-top description. He walked to the corner, picked up a bottle half full of water, took a sip, and then spoke slowly. Li Go is not entirely wrong, but it is not as simple as he makes it sound. We did find a second-level hut roughly 2.4 kilometers southeast of here. It is large, heavily fortified, and ringed with traps. 1 man and 3 women live there. What do the women look like? Zhao Jiahu pressed eagerly, his mind wandering. Sun Bo also leaned in, listening closely. Ma Kuei licked his lips and smiled. I guarantee you, every one of them would count as a campus beauty at any university. Both Zhao Jiahu and Sun Bo swallowed hard. Then what are we waiting for, Kuei-go? Zhao Jiahu clenched his fists until his knuckles cracked. Let's go right now. Kill the man, and the hut, the supplies, and the women will all be ours. We have done things like this before. Charge in? With what? Ma Kuei sneered, staring at him as if he were an idiot. This is nothing like the last time. The risks are far higher. Do not come crying to me if you get yourself killed. Zhao Jiahu flushed and fell silent. Kuega, what should we do then? Sun Bo asked softly, adjusting his glasses. Patience. Ma Kuei took another sip of water and paced the cramped hut, thinking. My talent lets me see 100 meters through the fog. That is our biggest advantage. I plan to lurk near their hut every day. We will strike the moment they separate. Sun Bo shuddered, seemingly recalling terrible memories. What's wrong, Sun Bo? Scared? Li Go jeered. You had your share last time another hut was wiped out. Why are you shaking now? Sun Bo stammered, haunted by the events of that earlier raid. What are you trembling for? Remember the food reward we get for wiping out another hut. Zhao Jiahu clapped a heavy hand on Sun Bo's shoulder. I have gone days without meat. Do not fail us this time. Mention of the reward brightened Ma Kuei's eyes. He glanced at a blueprint stored in his backpack, narrowed his eyes, and sighed quietly. I hope this time we get something genuinely useful. The next morning at hut number 10086. A night's rest had eased the exhaustion from their previous day's hard labor. Today we choose our intelligence, Su Chen said gravely to the 3 girls. I will pick biological intelligence. No one objected. To know your enemy is to win half the battle. They had to learn everything they could about their foes before taking action. As Su Chen made his selection, 3 streams of golden information flooded into his mind. Intelligence 1, Target Group, Ma Kuei's Squad. Hut number 10087, roughly 2.4 kilometers southeast of your current location. Intelligence 2, Leader Ma Kue, Level 3. Talent, D Grade Group Vision Enhancement. Passive ability, grants him and teammates within 50 meters the power to see 100 meters through fog. Intelligence 3, Teammates, Ligo Level 2, Zhao Jiahu Level 2, Sun Bo Level 2. Current status, all four are hiding behind a hillside roughly 100 meters southeast of your hut, observing you and waiting for a chance to raid. Warning, this group has already wiped out one other hut. Remain highly vigilant. When Su Chen repeated the 3 points word for word, the three girls turned deathly pale. A.D. Grade Talent, seeing 100 meters through the fog? Qin Xia frowned. That explains why they tailed us without us noticing a thing. They're watching us right now? Xia Nin jumped up from the sofa and hurried to the window, scanning the outside, trying to spot them. Yushi's expression turned deeply somber. Do not panic. Su Chen's calm voice cut through their alarm. His gaze was sharp and steady as he looked at the distraught women. His talent is troublesome, but not unbeatable. With a 100-meter sight range, they dare not draw near as long as we stay close to the hut. A ruthless glint appeared in Su Chen's eyes. We change our strategy starting today. Call off all long-range exploration missions. All our activities will be confined within 10 meters of the hut. The four of us will head for the mine pit together. Xia Nin, you keep watch. Xia, your leg injury has not fully healed. Stay at the pit edge and monitor the surroundings with the drone. Yushui and I will focus on mining. Understood. The three answered in unison. For the next 2 days, Su Chen and the three girls stayed close to home, mining non-stop. Su Chen kept selecting biological intelligence each day. He now knew nearly every detail about the enemy quartet. Meanwhile, behind the hillside 100 meters southeast of their hut, Ma Kue's squad sank into oppressive tension. Damn it. This is the third day. Li Go scratched his greasy hair in frustration and spat out a chewed-up grass root onto the ground. Those cowards never leave their home. They had lain in ambush from dawn till dusk for 2 full days. Already short on food, they survived only on water and tree bark. Starvation blurred their vision and tempers frayed. Kuega, we cannot keep waiting like this. Zhao Jiahu clutched his growling stomach and grumbled. We are starving out here, while that young man lives comfortably in that hut with 3 women. This is unfair. Thin-faced and weak-looking, Sun Bo huddled off to one side. He is right, Kuega. They never come out. There is no point staying here. And I keep feeling like something is up in the sky. Nonsense. Li Go kicked him hard. There is nothing but fog out here. No birds even fly by. You are just hallucinating from hunger. Sun Bo stumbled backward, too afraid to argue. Suddenly Li Go snapped his head upward. Through the mist, he spotted a tiny dark dot circling overhead. What is that? His voice shook. Ma Kue activated group vision enhancement and looked skyward. His face darkened instantly. It was no bird. It was a small drone with spinning propellers, built for stealth, almost completely silent. Damn it. Ma Kue cursed under his breath, a bad premonition washing over him. He finally understood what the remote control Qin Xia had held was for. A drone. Li Go's eyes bulged. How do they have a drone? Kuega, have they found us? Zhao Jiahu and Sun Bo paled and instinctively tried to hide. Calm down. Ma Kue barked, forcing his men back under control, even though his own heart had sunk. Everything clicked into place. That was why they had never strayed beyond 100 meters of their hut. That was why they mined frantically to stockpile resources. They had known about the ambush from the very start. These past 3 days had been spent preparing for battle. Kuega, what do we do now? They must have set traps for us. We should run, Sun Bo stammered, thoroughly terrified. Run. Ma Kue slowly turned toward him, his triangular eyes burning with rage. 4 of us have been played for 3 whole days by 1 man and 3 women. And now you want me to run? His voice was quiet, yet filled with bone, chilling coldness. Sun Bo shrank under his gaze, too terrified to utter another word. Damn it. Scared already? Ma Kue glanced around, a ferocious grin spreading across his face. So, what if they have a drone? Why don't they dare show themselves? Because they're afraid. They have no confidence. He grew more and more agitated, as if trying to bolster his own courage. Since underhanded tricks won't work, we'll go and head on. Ma Kue shot to his feet, madness glinting in his eyes. There's only 1 man on their side, and there are 4 of us. Our average level is 2, and I'm even level 3. No matter how strong that guy is, can he fight all four of us alone? He kicked Ligo hard in the hip and roared. What are you still standing there for? Go turn all our resources into weapons. Today, I'm going to smash their little hideout wide open. Stirred up by Ma Kuei's incitement, Ligo and Zhao Jiahu, who had previously lost their nerve, had ferocity reignite in their eyes. Right? There were four of them, and only one man on the other side. Even if they had been spotted, against overwhelming strength, all schemes and tricks amounted to nothing. Let's do it. Zhao Jiahu shouted first, shaking his huge fist. Take that guy out and seize their supplies. Ligo yelled in agreement. Only Sun Bo stood trembling where he was. Seeing the madness in the other three men's eyes, he knew there was no turning back. Move out. Ma Kuei waved his hand, and the three men hurried toward their wooden cabin. Beside the mine pit, Qin Xia was operating the drone when her brows suddenly drew tight. Su Chen, something's wrong. She lowered her voice and spoke to Su Chen, who was working hard down in the pit. What's happening? Su Chen stopped working and looked up at her. They're retreating. Confusion colored Qin Xia's tone. They're running back toward their cabin. Su Chen's mind stirred. Nothing happens without a reason. These people had lain in wait for 2 days. They would not give up for no cause. The only explanation was, they're coming to attack us. Su Chen's gaze turned icy and sharp. He leaped out of the mine pit. We have enough resources. Get back to the cabin right away and prepare for battle. At his order, the three women sprang into action. Count our supplies. The moment they stepped inside the cabin, Su Chen spoke. Qin Xia took out paper and pen and quickly tallied up their 2-day harvest. 70 units of wood. 50, 2 raw stones. 30 for iron ore chunks. 18 pieces of coal. Numbers that would drive any survivor wild. What levels have you reached? Su Chen asked next. Shu Yi and I are both LV3. Yin is almost level 3, Qin Xia replied. Su Chen nodded. He had hit level 5 the day before. Good. He took a deep breath and looked over the three girls. From now on, follow my orders. Shu Yi and Yin, you two keep watch. Pay attention to every movement outside the windows. Xia, keep monitoring them with the drone. Report the instant they make any move. Time to forge equipment. Bright, red iron ingots poured out of the furnace, and Su Chen stood at the workbench and began forging furiously. Iron sword forged successfully. Iron shield forged successfully. Iron helmet forged successfully. Piece after piece of cold, glinting metal equipment rolled off the workbench. The wooden cabin had turned into an efficiently operating war workshop. Heavy silence hung in the air, broken only by the roar of the furnace and the clanging of Su Chen's hammer. Minutes ticked by. When Su Chen finished forging the last piece of iron greave, the iron ingots were completely used up. He now owned a full set of iron armor, plus an iron spear and an iron axe. Just then, Qin Xia's voice rang out sharply. They're coming. 4 people, all armed. They're closing in fast. Xia Nin and Yushui paled instantly. They instinctively huddled together, staring nervously out into the thick, surging fog. Su Chen, however, remained eerily calm. He pulled on the newly finished iron greaves, strapped on his iron helmet, hung the heavy iron shield on his left arm, and gripped the cold, edged iron spear in his right hand. Click. The helmet visor snapped shut, encasing Su Chen entirely in cold steel. Everyone stay inside the cabin. Qin Xia. Here. Qin Xia answered at once, her eyes sharp and focused. Pilot the drone to scan the surroundings. Report their position and every shift in movement immediately. Xia Yinin. You should. Yes. Both girls responded, their voices trembling. Grab your gear. When they get close, we charge out. With that, he paid no more attention to the 3 girls and strode straight for the door. The open ground outside lay deathly quiet. Within minutes, 4 blurry figures emerged from the fog and drew nearer. It was Ma Kuei and his 3 accomplices. All 4 carried weapons, mostly crude stone spears and stone axes. Yet, surprisingly, Ma Kuei at the front brandished a brand new iron axe in his right hand. Clearly, they were not as poorly equipped as Su Chen had assumed. Brother Kuei. There it is. Ligo whispered excitedly, pointing at the building ahead. Ma Kuei ignored him. His talent-enhanced group vision let him see clearly what lay before the cabin. Yet when he found the doorway of the level 2 wooden house completely empty, doubt crept into his mind. Where were they? Did they think hiding indoors would keep them safe? Stay alert. They might have set traps inside. Everyone get your wooden shields ready. Ma Kuei warned his men in a low voice. The force slowed their pace, raised their wooden shields, spread into a loose fan formation, and advanced cautiously toward the cabin. 100 meters. 80 meters. 50 meters. 10 meters. The second they stepped within 5 meters of the building. Creak. The closed wooden door flew violently open without warning. A dark shape shot out like a cannonball. Look out. Ma Kuei's pupils constricted. Thanks to his enhanced vision, he made out what was coming, an iron spear glinting with metallic cold light. He threw himself sideways in a clumsy roll. Pfft. He dodged, but Li Go behind him had no such luck. The razor, sharp iron spear pierced cleanly through Li Go's wooden shield and drove straight through his chest. The tremendous force pinned him to the ground. Li Go's eyes bulged wide. Blood frothed from his mouth. His face froze in utter disbelief. One strike, one kill. The shocking sight stunned the remaining 3 men. Before they could process their companion's brutal death, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 more sounds of tearing air. 3 stone spears flew out from different cabin windows, aimed precisely at the remaining attackers. Damn it! Ma Kuei roared, swinging his iron axe to deflect the spear heading for him. Zhao Jiahu and Sun Bo fared far worse. Panicked by the sudden assault, they barely blocked the blows with their wooden shields. Charge! A deep shout echoed from inside the cabin. The next instant, a tall figure sheathed head to toe in steel stormed out, shield held high. Behind him came the 3 young women, armed with stone shields and stone axes. When Ma Kuei laid eyes on Su Chen's full set of armor, his spirit shattered. Iron armor. Iron shield. Iron spear. How could anyone craft such equipment in this world? Run. That was Ma Kuei's only thought. Aya. At that moment, Zhao Jiahu, driven wild by blood and death, roared like a beast. Eyes bloodshot, he charged straight at Su Chen instead of retreating, swinging his stone axe. Back in college, he had been the tyrant of the physical education department, relying on brute strength to overpower everyone. He refused to believe anyone could withstand his full, power blow head on. Foolish. Su Chen watched the rushing Zhao Jiahu without the slightest change in expression. He did not even draw his weapon. He simply stepped forward and rammed his iron shield forward with his left arm. Boom! A heavy crash resounded. Zhao Jiahu felt as though he had slammed into a mountain. Violent recoil racked his arms, tearing his palms open. Su Chen only staggered slightly. Even with superhuman physicality, Zhao Jiahu was no match for level 5 Su Chen. Horror flashed across Zhao Jiahu's face. He tried to back away, but it was too late. Su Chen lifted his right leg and delivered a fierce whip kick straight into Zhao Jiahu's side. Crack! The crisp sound of shattering bone rang out. Zhao Jiahu's bulky body flew backward like a tattered sack and crashed heavily onto the ground, unable to rise. The once domineering college athlete was as helpless as a chick before fully armed, level-advantaged Su Chen. Su Chen gave him no chance to recover. He closed in, summoned his iron axe from his inventory, and brought it crashing down. Blood splattered everywhere. Having dealt with Zhao Jiahu, Su Chen turned his cold gaze toward the only 2 survivors, Ma Kuei and Sun Bo. Ma Kuei sank into despair. He knew they had bitten off far more than they could chew. Throwing aside all thoughts of leadership pride, he turned to flee. Yet Su Chen moved faster. He strode over to Li Go's lifeless corpse, wrenched free his iron spear, and hurled it hard. Cold light sliced through the air. Like a striking viper, the iron spear pierced straight through Ma Kuei's back. Ma Kuei's body stiffened. He slowly looked down and saw the blood-soaked spear tip protruding from his chest. Despair and disbelief filled his eyes. To his dying breath, he could not understand. Why had everything gone so wrong? When Sun Bo watched Ma Kuei fall, his mind completely broke. He screamed shrilly, tossed down his weapon, and scrambled madly into the thick fog. Trying to run? Qin Xia, who had kept close watch over the fight, looked cold. She hurled her stone spear with all her strength. Hindered by the stone material and her limited physique, the spear missed Sun Bo's back and only sank deep into his thigh. Sun Bo screamed and tumbled to the ground. Driven by desperate survival instinct, he tore the spear free from his leg. Limping badly, he kept running and soon vanished into the mist. From start to finish, the whole battle lasted mere minutes. 3 bodies lay strewn across the open ground. Blood soaked the soil, and the sickly metallic stench hung heavy in the air. Staring at the scene of carnage, Xia Nin and Yu Shui could hold back no longer. Ugh, they bent over retching violently, faces deathly pale, their bodies shaking uncontrollably. They had never witnessed such gory horror. People who had been alive moments before now lay cold and dead in pools of blood. The brutal visual and mental shock threatened to overwhelm their sanity. Qin Xia fared little better. Nausea churned in her stomach. Even so, her eyes stayed locked on the steel, cloaked figure splattered with blood. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. Suchen saw the girl's reaction and sighed inwardly. They had to get through this trauma on their own. He offered no comfort. Instead, he stared grimly in the direction Sunbo had fled, his brows tightly knit. A fire left burning will grow back. He understood that truth better than most. Letting an enemy who knew their secrets and burned with hatred escape was equivalent to planting a ticking bomb beside them. At that moment, Qin Xia fought back her fear and nausea and stumbled over to Suchen. Suchen, are you hurt? Are you all right? Her voice shook with tears as she circled him, anxiously checking his armor. Yushui and Xia Inin forgot their nausea and hurried over, their faces full of worry. Compared to the horror of the corpses, their greatest fear was losing Suchen. In this cruel world, he was their only pillar of support. I'm fine. Suchen took off his helmet, revealing a calm face dotted with a few drops of blood. This armor's defensive power exceeds my expectations. Seeing he was unharmed, the three girls finally breathed out. The immense tension weighing on them felt ready to snap. We cannot let him get away. Suchen stared toward where Sunbo had disappeared and spoke in a heavy tone. His words sent their hearts lurching once more. You're going after him? Yushui's voice trembled. I have to. Suchen's tone was grave. If we leave him alive, we endanger all of us. Xia Inin waved her hands in alarm. But it's so dangerous out there. What if you run into other enemies? That's right, Suchen. Maybe we should let him go. He's badly wounded. Surely he won't dare come back, Yushui pleaded. They were genuinely terrified. They feared for Suchen's safety and dreaded seeing such brutality again. Suchen shook his head and looked sharply at them. You're being naive. In this world, mercy toward your enemy is cruelty toward yourself. If we do not cut this thread off now, someday we may face total ruin. Faced with his unyielding gaze, Yushui and Xia Inin fell silent. They knew he spoke the truth. I'm coming with you. Qin Xia spoke up unexpectedly. Her face remained pale, yet her resolve was firm. I can operate the drone. I can lock onto his position and guide you. Suchen glanced at her in surprise. He had assumed the battle would have shattered all their courage, yet Qin Xia was ready to keep going. You too, Qin Xia turned to the hesitant Yushui and Xia Inin. Stay inside the cabin. Wait for us to return. Yushui and Xia Inin exchanged glances. They looked at Qin Xia's determined back, then at Suchen, and finally nodded reluctantly. Very well, please be careful. Let's go. Suchen wasted no time. He put his helmet back on, picked up his recovered iron spear, and followed Qin Xia into the thick fog. Deep within the fog, shrouded forest, Suchen led the way, Qin Xia close behind, clutching her drone controller. The drone soared overhead. On its thermal imaging screen, a fleeing red human figure stood out clearly. He's heading southeast. He's moving slowly. He's probably trying to get back to their camp. Qin Xia kept her eyes glued to the screen and relayed information quickly. Good. Keep him in sight. Don't lose track. Suchen moved swiftly. His level 5 constitution let him traverse rough woodland terrain effortlessly. They chased in silence. The atmosphere hung heavy. Suchen, Qin Xia broke the quiet at last. Does killing people not frighten you at all? She voiced the question weighing on her mind. Suchen never slowed his pace. His voice came muffled through the helmet. It scares me. It does. Qin Xia sounded surprised. But I fear death more. Suchen's tone stayed level. And I fear losing you three even more. In this world, if you do not strike down others, others will strike you down. To survive, sometimes you must be harsher than your foes. Qin Xia lapsed into silence. She watched Suchen's broad, solid back, her heart a jumble of conflicting emotions. Once upon a time, he had been the young man who dozed off in class and joked around with his friends, a bright, spirited boy. Now he could take another person's life without so much as a flinch and calmly analyze how to survive in this harsh world. This world had changed him, and it was his drive to protect them that had turned him into the man he was today. Thinking of this, a bitter, aching sympathy welled up inside Qin Xia. The target has stopped. Qin Shia's voice pulled Suchin back from his thoughts. On the screen, the red dot representing Sunbo had halted right in front of the outline of a building. It looks like he's home. A cold smirk tugged at the corner of Suchen's mouth. Elsewhere, Sunbo ran for his life. The gash on his thigh burned fiercely. Every step felt as though a knife was slicing into his flesh. Without Ma Kuei's talent, his visibility was limited to roughly 10 meters. The thick fog behind him loomed like a ravenous beast, ready to swallow him at any moment. His mind had gone completely blank, his senses nearly deserting him. Nothing remained but raw terror. Almost there. He was nearly there. He caught sight of the silhouette of his run-down wooden cabin, and a wild glimmer of relief crossed his face. If he could just get inside the cabin, he would be safe. Summoning his last reserves of strength, he stumbled to the cabin and reached a trembling hand for the rickety wooden door. The moment his fingers were about to touch the panel, a cold voice rang out behind him. "Where do you think you're going?" Sunbo froze stiff. Slowly, using every ounce of his strength, he turned around. The man clad in iron armor stood less than 3 meters away. The iron spear in his hand still dripped with his former companion's blood. "No, don't kill me. Please. I know nothing. I'm just an ordinary person. I won't tell anyone. I'll work for you, do anything you say." Sunbo dropped heavily to his knees, kowtowing desperately in supplication. Suchin stared at him with an impassive expression. Prior intelligence indicated this man possessed no special talent and had only been dragged along by the group. Yet his hands, too, were stained with the blood of innocent people. Suchin would show him no mercy. He raised his spear. "No." Squelch. The spear thrust down, bursting forth a spray of blood. Silence fell. Suchin stood beside the corpse, his features unperturbed. Qin Xia arrived just then. Is it all over?" "Yes." Suchin nodded. "It's over." He stowed his spear and fixed a frigid gaze on the dilapidated level, one wooden cabin before him. Detected unclaimed wooden cabin, number 10087. Would you like to dismantle and recycle it? Recycle. At Suchen's command, the cabin shimmered with golden light as it rapidly decomposed and collapsed. In its place lay a neat pile of materials on the ground. Recycling successful. Obtained, wood times 52, raw stone times 8, mineral water times 5, lighter times 1, clock times 1, worn fuel lamp times 1. As Suchin stored the materials in his backpack, another system prompt echoed inside his head. "Congratulations to Suchin, warden of cabin number 10086 in zone 77777. You have eliminated a hostile cabin team. Reward, food chest times 1, reward, tool chest times 1, reward, special, item chest times 1. Open now." Destroying an enemy cabin came with rewards? Suchin was genuinely surprised. If that was the case, then Suchin, can we head back now? Qin Shia's voice interrupted his train of thought. He turned to look at her. Her face was deathly pale, arms clutched tight across her chest, her legs trembling non-stop. She was thoroughly terrified. Far from feeling disdain, Suchin felt a flicker of warmth in his heart. This girl had been so scared, yet she had still followed him out here. He could not help but feel moved. "Qin Xia, can you hold on?" Suchin stepped beside her and asked softly. I'm fine." Qin Xia forced a faint smile and tried to take a step, only to find her legs would not obey her. "I read online that people can lose the ability to move under extreme fear. I guess it's really true. You've given me quite an eye-opener." Suchin circled around her, half teasing. You jerk." Qin Xia's cheeks flushed. She glared furiously at him. Oddly enough, his light-hearted remark brought back traces of the Suchin she had once known, easing some of the terror gnawing at her. "Need help?" "Huh?" Qin Xia blinked in confusion. Suchin shook his head, stowed his iron armor into his backpack, then stepped forward. With a small cry, Qin Xia found herself swept off her feet into his arms. Suchin strode quickly toward their original cabin. Along the way, Qin Xia huddled against his solid chest, too flustered to lift her head. Her heart hammered wildly in her ribcage. She could plainly feel the hard muscle beneath his clothes. This was the first time she had ever been held so closely by a man, and her pulse raced. "Wow, I didn't expect you to be this heavy." The tender moment was instantly shattered by Suchin's blunt comment. "You." Too exasperated for words, Qin Xia looped her arms around his neck and leaned her weight down as payback. The shift nearly caught Suchin off balance. She had a large frame to begin with, and her added weight strained his arms. If they did not hurry back, he might not make it. Suchin readjusted his grip and kept his eyes fixed forward. Truth be told, after reaching level 5, not only had his physical attributes improved greatly, his vision range had also expanded. Where he had once only seen 6 or 7 meters ahead, he could now see roughly 20-odd meters. He wondered what further upgrades would bring. When the outline of their level 2 cabin came into sight, both of them finally relaxed their taut nerves. Creak. The doors swung open. Xia Yinin and Yushui had been waiting anxiously inside. Relief washed over their faces when they saw the pair return unharmed. You're finally back. Tears welled in Xia Yinin's eyes. She rushed forward at once, checking them for injuries. Yushui hurried over as well, heavy with worry. Are you hurt? What about the one who ran away? He's dealt with, Suchin told them. Qin Xia walked over to her 2 friends and patted their shoulders. Let's go inside. It's not safe out here. The 4 entered the cabin and shut the door. The warmth and safety inside gradually calmed their frayed emotions. Though the cabin blocked the thick fog and the heavy scent of blood from outside, none of them could forget what had just happened. 3 corpses still lay out there. They posed a real risk. Rotting bodies might spawn plague or draw scavenging monsters. Everyone, those bodies outside need to be taken care of, Suchin broke the silence. Xia Yinin and Yushui paled. The thought of touching those mangled corpses filled them with nausea and dread. I can't do it, Xia Yinin's voice trembled, close to tears. I'll go, Suchin sighed. You all stay inside. No, Qin Xia shook her head, her gaze firm as she looked at him. We're a team. You shouldn't have to bear this alone. Conflicts like this will keep happening. We have to grow stronger quickly. Her words jolted the terrified Yushui and Xia Yinin awake. Suchin was their pillar, but he was not an invincible god. They could not keep hiding behind him forever. I'll go with you. Yushui gritted her teeth and stepped forward first. Xia Yinin's knees still shook, but watching her friends resolve themselves, she took a deep breath and nodded firmly. I'm coming too. The 4 opened the door once more and stepped out onto the blood-stained clearing. Even seeing the scene a second time, the horrifying sight made the girls feel light-headed. Suchin pulled a shovel from his backpack. We'll dig a deep pit and bury them. Just as he prepared to start digging, Xia Yinin tugged at the hem of his shirt and whispered, Suchin, we all have backpack storage. Did they have them too? What happens to the items in someone's backpack when they die? Her question made everyone freeze. Everyone possessed a system backpack. What became of its contents upon death? Would they vanish or remain behind somehow? I'll test it. Suchen's gaze fell on Makue's corpse, the leader of the hostile group. Suppressing his discomfort, he reached out and touched the body. A system prompt immediately sounded inside his mind. Detected unclaimed backpack. Open it? It really was possible. Suchen's heart stirred. Open. A virtual storage interface unfolded before his eyes. Ding. You obtained iron axe ×1, raw stone ×15, compressed biscuit ×2, special tool blueprint, chainsaw, crafting materials, precision parts ×10, fine steel ×5. A chainsaw. Suchen's eyes lit up. With one, their tree cutting efficiency would surge 10 or 20-fold. Qin Xia noticed his darkened expression. Did you find anything? Suchin took a deep breath and suppressed his rising anger. He transferred all useful items to his own backpack. Some resources and a blueprint, he said. Afterwards, Suchin looted the other 2 corpses. Zhao Jiahu and Li Go held far fewer possessions, only raw stone and wood. Once they finished searching the bodies, the 3 corpses dissolved into faint white specks and vanished from sight, as though nothing had occurred. Yet the faint metallic tang of blood hanging in the air bore witness to everything that had transpired. So the bodies only disappear once their backpack contents are looted, Suchin muttered to himself. Many questions swirled in his mind regarding the rules of this strange world. In that case, we will examine Sun Bo's corpse tomorrow. We may learn more after one night passes. Back inside the cabin, Suchin remembered the 3 reward chests he had yet to open. He took the 3 glowing chests out of his backpack and set them on the living room table. What are these? Yushui asked curiously. Rewards for wiping out their cabin, Suchin explained. The unexpected loot lightened the heavy mood, drawing the 3 girls' full attention. Open them quickly, Xia Yinin urged. Suchin nodded and opened the food chest first. bright light burst forth and food materialized across the table. A 5-kilogram sack of rice, fresh beef, a potato, 2 eggs, a Chinese cabbage, a small bottle of soy sauce, and a small bag of salt. Wow! Rice. And meat. Xia Inin gasped, nearly rushing forward. Plagued by Ma Kuei's group these past days, they had barely bothered to eat. Even the raw pork Su Chen had brought back earlier had gone uncooked. Now that the immediate threat was gone, they could finally enjoy a proper meal. Next, Su Chen opened the tool chest. Light flashed, and a square metal box with a hand crank appeared on the table. Obtained, hand, cranked generator ×1. Hand, cranked generator. Turn the crank to produce weak direct current to power small electronic devices. A generator. Delight flashed across Su Chen's face. With it, they could recharge their drone and electric lamps. This was an extremely valuable find. He composed himself and opened the final special, item chest. He drew in a breath and touched its surface. Brilliant light flooded the room. When the glow faded, a faintly white, tinged blueprint rested in the center of the table. Obtained blueprint, revolver. Revolver, truth needs few words. Crafting materials, fine steel ×8, precision parts ×5, gunpowder ×10. A gun. Everyone drew in a sharp breath. In this world, a firearm represented overwhelming power. We're practically unstoppable. Xia Inin jumped for joy. Qin Xia quickly tempered their excitement, pointing at the material list on the blueprint with a frown. But we don't have fine steel, precision parts, or gunpowder. Where are we supposed to get them? Her words dampened their high spirits. No matter how good the blueprint was, it was useless without the required materials. Su Chen narrowed his eyes. Ma Kuei had likely been stuck in exactly the same predicament, unable to build his chainsaw blueprint. Still, he possessed the intelligence talent. Gathering materials was only a matter of time. They could also trade for what they needed through the global chat channel. Surely among so many survivors, someone would have those components. He stowed the blueprint inside his backpack. We will handle the materials later. One step at a time. He glanced toward the window. It was still several hours before nightfall. We can't waste daylight. Let's mine ore and cut trees and return right before sunset. The 3 girls were stunned. After such a brutal day, every muscle in their bodies screamed for rest. Yet no one voiced any objection as they met Su Chen's gaze. In this world, there was little luxury for exhaustion. For the next few hours, the 4 worked tirelessly. Su Chen and Yushui labored in the mine pit, swinging pickaxes to mine iron, ore, and coal. Outside, Xia Inin and Qin Xia chopped at the hard, alien trees with iron axes. No one spoke. Only the clanging of tools against rock and wood echoed through the woods. They poured all their fear and trauma from the day into hard labor. When sunset dyed the sky crimson, they dragged their exhausted bodies back to the cabin. All of them were worn out, barely able to utter a word. Xia Nin and Yushi collapsed onto the sofa, drained of every last ounce of energy. Qin Xia leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. Su Chen did not rest. He walked to the furnace and tossed in the newly mined iron, ore, and coal. Flames blazed to life once more. He glanced at the 3 pale-faced girls on the sofa and spoke in a low voice. Everyone has worked hard today. But you need to understand, scenes like what we saw today will likely become commonplace. With that, he walked over to the workbench. On the crafting interface, he found the option for an iron pot. Iron pot consumes 3 iron ingots. Craft? Craft. A flash of light and 2 dark-colored, heavy iron pots appeared in Su Chen's hands. Iron ingots were not in short supply right now, so he had crafted 2 directly. He hefted them. They felt solid and weighty. He set one iron pot atop the blazing furnace and stowed the other inside his inventory space. Once that was done, he walked over to the table to prepare the plentiful ingredients he had gathered that day. First, he picked up the heavy sack of rice. Carefully slicing a small opening, he poured out enough rice for 4 people. Using precious mineral water, he rinsed the rice thoroughly twice. Watching the milky rinse water flow away, he felt a twinge of regret, yet this was no time to be overly frugal. All work and no play makes for worn down spirits. The girls had been through so much today. A decent, satisfying meal was necessary to keep their morale stable. He poured the rinsed rice together with an appropriate amount of water into the iron pot, put the lid on, and began steaming the rice. Next came cutting the meat. After a moment's thought, Su Chen turned his gaze toward the large stock of wood in his inventory. Wood plank consumes 3 wood. Craft? Craft. A smooth, flat plank materialized, perfect to serve as a makeshift cutting board. Wooden spatula consumes 2 wood. Craft. A simple wooden spatula appeared soon after. With these 2 items, the bare, minimum cooking setup was complete. Sighing inwardly, he realized cooking was far more trouble than he expected. He also noticed he needed to build another furnace. His only existing furnace was currently occupied cooking rice. Suchin, let us help you. Seeing him bustling about, the 3 girls felt guilty and stepped forward to offer assistance. All right, if you want to pitch in, wash and chop these ingredients for me. He added, also build another furnace, craft a kitchen knife, and keep an eye on the pot steaming rice. Got it. At Su Chen's instruction, the 3 girls got busy at once. Here you go. Yushui quickly finished crafting a kitchen knife and handed it over. Su Chen nodded and took it. He laid the newly made plank on the table as a cutting board, gripped the knife, took a deep breath, and carefully sliced the marbled fresh beef into evenly sized chunks. He tossed the beef pieces into the hot iron pan and stirred them with the wooden spatula. Sizzle. The meat hit the scorching metal surface and shrank immediately. Its surface turned golden, brown, releasing an incredibly appetizing aroma. He tossed in the potato chunks chopped by Xia Inin and continued stir, frying everything together. Coated in beef fat, the edges of the potatoes also turned golden. Finally, he took his hard-earned bottle of soy sauce from his backpack and poured some in. Contact with the hot pan brought forth an even richer fragrance. Suchin, I never knew you could cook so well. Xia Inin sniffed the air, staring at him in amazement. It's nothing special. I only know a few simple dishes. Suchin poured in water, just enough to cover the beef and potatoes, replaced the lid, and let everything simmer gently using residual furnace heat. When the fragrant steam of cooked rice seeped out from under the lid, he scooped the steamed rice out and set it aside. He cleaned the iron pot, set it back on the furnace to heat up, and started frying Chinese cabbage. Qin Xia had already chopped the cabbage. There was no cooking oil available, so he used broth skimmed from the simmering beef instead. He tossed the cabbage in, gave it a quick stir, fry, and sprinkled in a little salt. A simple vegetable dish was finished. Craft 4 sets of wooden bowls, chopsticks, and several wooden plates for us. Understood. About half an hour later, braised beef brisket with potatoes, fried Chinese cabbage, and a big pot of fragrant steamed rice were laid out on the table, drawing everyone's full attention. Wow, Suchin! You're a lifesaver. Xia Inin let out an excited cry. The 4 gathered around the table. The girls picked up their new wooden tableware, filled their bowls with rice, and took bites of tender stewed beef. The moment the long-lost taste of meat and warm rice touched their tongues, silent tears began streaming down their faces, dripping into their bowls. They did not wail aloud, just ate heartily while weeping quietly. Homesickness washed over them. They had not felt it while surviving on instant noodles and beef jerky, but real home-cooked food brought all those feelings rushing to the surface. Should we check the regional chat channel? Xia Inin sniffled. Lingering in low spirits would not help anyone. Let's take a look. Qin Xia composed herself and agreed. Let's see what is happening out there. A pale, blue light screen unfolded before them. Regional population, 75,271/100,000. Only 3 or 4 days had passed, and tens of thousands of people were already gone. Messages flooded the screen in rapid succession. Prison 9 Gates Cabin 23111, help. Somebody help. My roommate has lost his mind. He wants to hurt me. Help. Polish, my shoes cabin 53213, water. Does anyone have water? I will trade everything I own for 1 bottle of water, please. Pure Love Warrior Falls cabin 13144, what are all of you doing? Why can't people band together? People are fighting brutally just for food. This world has gone mad. Out. Work. Everyone cabin 98422. Everyone. We all have special talents. Groups of dorm mates should unite. That will raise our survival odds. Zhongwei cabin 73432. That is empty talk. Not everyone gets powerful talents. Mine is E grade, pleasant body odor. What good is that? It won't fill my stomach. I'm starving. I'll do anything for some food. Little, old, me cabin 64422. Medicine. Does anyone have medicine? I'm injured. My wound is infected. I feel terrible. I don't want to die. Every message carried suffering, despair, infighting, and death. That was the harsh reality for most trapped in this world. Xia Yinin clapped a hand over her mouth in horror. Yushui and Qin Xia paled, their brows furrowed with unease. We are far luckier than them. Yushui drew a shaky breath, filled with relief mixed with dread. They possessed a sturdy tier, 2 cabin, ample food and water, decent weapons and gear, and Suchin leading their group. Countless others struggled just to stay alive, turning on one another. Suchin quietly closed the chat window. Don't look any further. His voice remained calm. We cannot save everyone. If we want to survive, we can only rely on ourselves. He stood and walked over to the storage chest. Let's tally up our current supplies. Taking stock of their resources brought a small measure of security amid the chaos. Remaining wood, 312. Raw stone, 158. Iron ingots, 5. Coal, 34. For food, we still have plenty of rice. Half of our beef is gone. We have some potatoes, cabbage, raw pork, salt, and soy sauce left. We also keep some compressed biscuits and canned food in reserve. Water, 15 bottles of 550 milliliters mineral water. Tools and weapons, 1 iron axe, 1 iron pickaxe, 1 iron spear, 2 iron pots, multiple stone spears, and stone axes. Gear, 1 full set of iron armor, 2 protective suits. Special tools, radio, lamp, drone. Blueprints, chainsaw, and revolver. We do not yet have all required materials to craft either. Suchen's voice echoed through the quiet living room. Hearing the inventory report helped the 3 girls steady their emotions. Fear and despair solved nothing. Only gathering resources and growing stronger opened the path forward. Everyone is worn out. Get some rest, Suchen said. We have much work waiting for us tomorrow. The girls nodded silently. Everything they had endured that day had pushed both their bodies and minds to their limits. Xia Nin and Yushui returned to their shared room, and Qin Xia headed for her own bedroom. Suchen checked all doors and windows to make certain they were secure before going to bed as well. Inside the bedroom, Suchen lay on the bed with his hands behind his head, wide awake. Images of the day's violence replayed in his thoughts, Makue's bitter defiance right before death, Sunbo's pitiful pleas for mercy. He let out a soft sigh. Truth be told, he felt no fear. It struck him as strange. In his old life, he had never even slaughtered a chicken, yet when forced to take lives here, he had acted decisively without visceral revulsion. Could there be something inherently cold-blooded about him? Qin Xia could not fall asleep either. The day's events kept churning through her mind. Can't sleep. Su Chen's voice broke the darkness. Qin Xia's body stiffened slightly, and she gave a quiet Are you thinking about what happened today? A short silence settled over them. Suchen. Qin Xia adjusted her nightgown, turned toward him in the dark, and spoke softly. Do you think how we lived back at school was happy? Sure it was. Suchen recalled those carefree days. In class, we rarely paid attention to lectures and fooled around instead. After class, we ordered takeout or ate out. Back then, I took all of it for granted, but looking back, it really was comfortable. Didn't you eat cafeteria food? Come on, the cafeteria only had so many stalls. We ate there for years and grew tired of it. The small shops near campus were cheap, about the same price as school meals. That makes sense. She paused. But I have one regret. What regret? Suchen coughed lightly, a little sheepish. I was decent looking, yet no rich girl ever chased after me. That is my big regret. Qin Xia let out a quiet laugh. Then something crossed her mind, and she said gently, Suchen, now that we are stuck in this world, I will be honest with you. Do you know someone in our class had feelings for you? Really? Suchen perked up. Who is it? Good taste on their part. Qin Xia watched his reaction, her heart sinking a little, though her face betrayed little. It was Zhao Xinyan. Her. Did you like her? Not really. I barely remember her, just that she was a classmate. You don't even remember what girls in our class look like? We had quite a few female classmates. We only saw each other in lectures. How could I keep every single face in mind? Suchen felt confused. I see. For some reason, hearing that lifted Qin Xia's mood. Do you remember me then? Of course. Everyone in our class knew you, the quiet, elegant beauty. Suchen joked. You idiot. Qin Xia gave him a light playful swat, her cheeks flushing. I am not aloof. I am just socially anxious. Suchen studied her dimly outlined face. That fits. Talking to you never felt like you were distant. You. Qin Xia felt both amused and flustered. Don't tease me. You are different here compared to how you acted at school too. Suchin fell quiet and shook his head helplessly. Yeah, I never imagined I would become like this. Having to do those terrible things. But what choice did we have? If we had not stopped Ma Kuei and his group, they would have killed us. We had no other way out. Seeing his low mood, Qin Xia was filled with sympathy and guilt. I did not mean to blame you. Please do not misunderstand. It is fine, don't worry about it. Suchin I. Soft, muffled weeping suddenly echoed through the dark room. Suchin was taken aback, watching Qin Xia cry with tears streaming down her face. Hey, why are you crying? Please don't. He lifted a hand intending to pat her shoulder. Before his hand landed, Qin Xia threw herself into his arms. Her suppressed crying turned into quiet sobs. She buried her face against his chest, and her warm tears soaked his shirt. Suchin froze. He could feel the softness of her body and catch her faint fragrance, unsure how to respond. After a moment's hesitation, he wrapped his arms around her and patted her back gently. It is all right, it is all over now. Some time passed before Qin Xia's crying subsided into quiet sniffling. She pulled back from his embrace. Her eyes were red and puffy as she looked straight at him in the dimness. Suchin. Yes, I like you. What did you say? I said I like you. Suchin's mind went completely blank. Staring at her beautiful face, he did not know how to reply. I have felt this way for a very long time. Qin Xia's cheeks burned hot. She summoned every ounce of courage to continue. I never dared to tell you before. I was afraid confessing would ruin our friendship. Suchin began to speak, but Qin Xia placed a finger lightly over his lips to stop him. You do not have to give me an answer right now. I just needed you to know. I feared we might never get another chance to say it. She leaned forward and kissed him. Her lips were soft and cool, tasting faintly of salty tears. A shiver ran through Suchin's whole body. As a young man, he could hardly resist this moment. He already held genuine affection for this girl who seemed cold on the surface yet was warm, hearted underneath. He pulled her closer and returned the kiss, deepening it. The atmosphere in the bedroom grew tender and heated. Caught in the emotion of the moment, they drew very close to crossing the final boundary. Right at that critical point, Qin Xia tensed and held her hand against his arm. Her voice trembled. Wait, hold on. What is wrong? Panic flickered across her expression. We do not have protection. Suchin immediately stilled. He had completely forgotten that factor. Sanitation conditions in this trapped world were extremely poor. An unintended pregnancy would be catastrophic, potentially endangering her life. He drew a deep breath and started to pull away from her. Even though desire surged within him, he could not ignore the life-threatening risk she would take. He would never act selfishly and put her in such grave danger. Qin Xia's arms remained looped around his neck, stopping him from moving away. She bit her lower lip, her face burning bright red. Conflict swirled plainly in her eyes as she struggled with her own thoughts. Suchin, she breathed out slowly and met his gaze earnestly. I know what risk this carries. Suchin's heart was stirred. The fact she was willing to consider such danger for him moved him deeply. Still, he steeled his resolve. He cared for her too much to subject her to that hazard. He sighed and steadied his breathing, calming his racing emotions. They would have to wait until they could find proper protective supplies. If they could find blueprints for chainsaws, revolvers, and drones, surely protective items could be located somewhere in this world as well. It will be settled in at most 3 days. If I hold it in any longer, I'll drive myself crazy. Shortly after, Suchin rolled off Qin Xia and lay down beside her, pulling her tightly into his arms. A bitter smile crossed his face. You're stopping? Qin Xia's cheeks flushed red. She held herself tightly and whispered to Suchin. At this, Suchin smirked. He leaned close to her burning, hot ear and lowered his voice. I'm not doing that anymore, but I've got other things on my mind. What are you Before Qin Xia could make sense of his words, a cry escaped her. In the other room, Yuxi could not fall asleep. The events of the day had shaken her deeply, and she had yet to process everything. She sat up and walked over to the window, checking to see if any monsters were approaching. Though the upgraded level 2 log cabin came with an alarm system and no longer required sentry duty, she still wanted something to occupy her time. To her surprise, there were no zombies outside at all. Everything was eerily quiet and peaceful. Sigh. Just when I feel like doing some work, there is nothing to do. Yuxi shook her head and prepared to go back to bed. Right as she was about to climb under the covers, she heard faint, muffled sounds coming from nearby. Alarmed, she quickly shook the sleeping Xia Inin awake. "Inin, listen. Can you hear something out there?" Still drowsy, Xia Inin was instantly startled. She rubbed her eyes, sat up with great effort, and focused on listening. There really is something. And it sounds like more than one person. Fully awake now, Xia Inin clung to Yushi and buried her face against her shoulder. "Stay calm. Let's go get Suchen." Yushi regained her composure and headed for the door. After days together, she had come to rely heavily on Suchen. Yet the moment she reached the doorway, she froze in place. Why aren't you opening the door?" Xia Inin jumped down from the bed and stared at her frozen friend. "Don't you think those noises are coming from the next room?" Yushi's face turned crimson as she spoke. "Huh? What do you mean?" The two pressed their ears against the wall and listened to the noises drifting over from the adjacent room. Good heavens. What on earth are they doing? Remove on earth and you'll get the picture. But what about us? Xia Inin's face burned bright red, and she wanted to stop listening. Yushi also felt extremely flustered. If she kept listening, she would not know where to place herself. How could this happen? Xia, Suchen must have forced her. Xia Inin gritted her teeth and made to storm out to confront him. "Get back here," Yushi hissed. Suchen would never do something like that, and Xia is not the sort of woman who gives herself away easily. Does that mean they genuinely care for each other? A strange look crossed Yushi's face. After a short silence, she nodded. This world has gone completely mad. I can't take this. Xia Inin's legs went weak, and she plopped heavily onto the floor. What should we do now? Go to sleep. Yushi stepped forward, lifted Xia Inin off the ground, and tucked her into bed. They held each other as they lay there. You sound upset. Are you worried about Xia? Stop talking. Sleep. The next morning, as sunlight seeped through the window cracks and lit the room, Suchen slowly opened his eyes. He had stayed up far too late the night before and probably slept less than 4 hours, yet he felt wide awake and sharp-minded. He glanced down at the girl curled like a kitten in his arms. Dark circles marred her eyes. She was clearly worn out. A profound sense of satisfaction and peace welled up inside Suchen, stronger even than the thrill of defeating enemies or looting precious supplies. He brushed damp strands of sweat, matted hair away from her forehead, and gently pressed a kiss to her brow. Sensing his touch, Xia let out a soft murmur, snuggled deeper into his embrace, and drifted back to sleep. Suchen smiled, carefully climbed out of bed, got dressed, and stepped out into the living room. Xia Inin and Yushi were already awake, huddled around the table whispering. They both stared when Suchen walked out, wearing identical odd expressions. "Morning," Suchen greeted casually. "Morning," Xia Inin replied hesitantly, her eyes drifting toward the closed bedroom door behind him. Yushi cleared her throat and pushed a piece of beef jerky and a bottle of water toward him. "Eat quickly. We have plenty to do today." Suchen sat down and picked up the jerky. "What's wrong? Why are you two looking at me like that?" Xia Inin and Yushi exchanged an awkward glance. "And nothing," Xia Inin waved her hands. "We were just discussing what intel we should pick today." "Oh." Suchen raised an eyebrow. "Did you come to a decision?" "Now that Ma Kuei's gang is no longer a threat, we are temporarily safe," Yushi explained. "So we want to select supply intel." They were in desperate need of resources, food, water, and practical gear such as drones. None of these could be obtained simply by mining or chopping wood. "I agree," Suchen nodded. Just as he was about to activate his talent, a thought flashed through his mind. Wait a minute. He paused and narrowed his eyes in deep thought. His SSS, rank talent, daily intel. Every time he used it, the information provided precisely matched their most urgent needs at that moment. On the first day, starving and thirsty, supply intel led them to supply crates nearby. On the second day, eager to understand the monsters, biological intel revealed the weaknesses of zombies and werewolves. Later, when Ma Kuei's group hunted them down, biological intel pinpointed the enemy's location and numbers. Could all of this merely be coincidence? Or, Suchen's heart beat faster. Could his SSS, rank talent, do more than passively deliver information? To some degree, could it respond to his own will? Or would it automatically filter the most beneficial and urgently needed information for him? The more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. His mind turned to the 2 blueprints he could not craft for lack of materials, the chainsaw, and the revolver. Required materials: high-grade steel, precision components, gunpowder. These were products of modern industry. In this world, even iron ore was scarce, so finding them seemed nearly impossible. But what if his theory was correct? What if the talent responded to his intentions? A bold experimental plan formed in his mind. He had to test it. "Give me a moment," Suchin told the two girls and closed his eyes. In his mind, he repeated three key terms over and over: high-grade steel, precision components, gunpowder. "Suchin? What's wrong?" Watching him shut his eyes and mutter to himself, Xia Anin grew worried. "Don't disturb him," Yushi held her back. She suspected Suchin was preparing to use his special ability. 5 full minutes passed before Suchin's eyes flew open. "Now," he thought to himself. "Activate talent. Select supply intel. Ding. SSS, rank talent, daily intel, activated. Filtering supply intel. Intel filtering complete." 2 glowing lines of text materialized before Suchin's eyes. Reading the first one, his breath caught. Intel 1, roughly 4 kilometers due south of your log cabin lies a large crate which may contain a small amount of high-grade steel. It worked. It actually worked. This was the true power of his SSS, rank talent. Intel 2, inside a cave roughly 5 kilometers northwest of your log cabin sits a crate stocked with food supplies. Still food. A flicker of disappointment crossed Suchin. Apparently, he could only slightly influence what kind of intel he received. Right then, overwhelming fatigue washed over him. His legs buckled, and he nearly collapsed. Shock swept over him. Attempting to bend the talent's output drained his physical strength. Perhaps as he leveled up, his influence would grow stronger. "What did you find?" Yushi hurried over, tense with anticipation. Suchin looked at the two girls, then toward Qin Xia, who had just stepped out of the bedroom still half asleep. He broke into a bright smile. "We gained a lot." He stood and relayed the 2 pieces of intel. "Great. Let's head out right away." Xia Inin exclaimed excitedly. "With these materials, we can craft the chainsaw and the pistol." According to their rotation, today was supposed to be her and Yushi's turn to venture outside. Yushi nodded, brimming with excitement for today's expedition. But Suchin shook his head. "Today is different." He paused. "I have something else to take care of. I'll go out this time. I want to check on Sunbo's body." At the mention of Sunbo's corpse, Xia Inin paled. Yushi immediately understood. Suchin intended to test the rule that corpses would not vanish if their backpacks were not looted. "I'll come with you," she said at once. 2 people are safer. She was already ready for departure, her pack stocked with water and weapons. "No," Suchin shook his head again. His gaze drifted past Yushi to Qin Xia, still groggy from sleep. "Qin Xia should come with me instead. We work well together." The atmosphere in the living room shifted instantly. Qin Xia's face flushed scarlet, all drowsiness vanishing. She bowed her head in embarrassment, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Xia Nin blinked, glancing between Suchin and the blushing Qin Xia, a teasing grin spreading across her face. Meanwhile, the eager light faded from Yushi's features. She stood rooted to the spot, opening and closing her hands. "Why not me? We also made a great team." Is it only because of what happened last night between him and her? I would not have objected.